for me, but you know what? Wishing you a happy Thursday. Holy fucking moly, this week has been flying by. As always, wishing you the best, the happiest of the happiest. Just wishing you well over here from a very cold, a very negative, whatever it is today. Helsinki, Finland. This whole town is just covered in snow. Let's get into the live scene right over here. As Bitcoin has had a little bit of a sell-off to begin the day, to begin the morning, at least for myself, over here in the European time zone. But you know, more importantly, we did have that nice little run up yesterday, and to begin this daily dodo as well, basically testing that. You know, I consider this a test of the red 10 simple moving average right over here. But again, this is the beauty of these moving averages. I want to be seeing what their slope is in relation to price action, and to me, these are just tests, just that. And so far, we have found resistance right around that range that we spoke on yesterday. If I do want to go over here to my Bit Mexican chart, we can actually see exactly where we had them in. We had this guy right over here at around 34.78, and then basically, you know, should have had one right over here as well. But you know, still kind of holding through and going back to our high time frames right over here. So I just wanted to show that really quickly. I also should show my positions. I always want to be open and honest about this. I am short from, I don't know, 34.24, still short from 30.62.92, and I have some options positions as well that I'm just kind of playing around with. A little bit of a gamble right there, but you know, just in case this thing actually does have the quick flush scenario, which I would like to protect myself against going against spot. That's just really for scalp, but the options are beautiful with, you know, to kind of play that, because the risk is highly limited, and while I'm not necessarily fully, I'm certainly not I'm not looking for the full flush to happen, but I will present a case today that, you know, it is certainly a possibility right now. So overall, Bitcoin just basically doing more of the same as far as I see it, just kind of walking itself down this overall curved over pattern, and demonstrative by the volume signature right over here, that very orderly drop off in volume I always speak about, and the corrective structure in nature. This is likely to be a bearishly resolved pattern is what that essentially says. Pair that up with your exponentials and simples. You know, they are still, sorry, we should actually zoom right into it. They are still gaining divergence away from each other. They are essentially suggesting that the trend is strengthening to the downside, essentially. Now, this is still just consolidation, so we haven't seen a major break just yet. We haven't seen anything of confirmation in the ways of confirmation just yet, but I do believe that today we're actually likely to see some fireworks either which way. So I want to present both cases. But first things first, let's actually look at the higher time frame oscillators. We still got our daily Stokes cross downwards. Again, not even able to get out of the bearish control zone. That to me is telling us that, well, pressure is down. Yesterday, we spoke about this on live stream, that yesterday was kind of just, you know, a comeback and test of this exponential moving average right over here on the RSI. It's found resistance again. Once again, this whole area just consolidating between the bearish control zone and the neutral zone, and finding a lot of comfort in that bearish control zone. ADI DMX, you know, completely, the ADX is actually still gaining strength, funnily enough, but we're seeing the DMI minus get faded. Although that, you know, technically that would be a short signal. I don't really consider it one. Yes, I am overall bearish, believing that Bitcoin's extremely likely to hit lower lows, but you know, you got to call a spade a spade. I don't really consider that a full-on signal. Same thing with the Joule right over here. Whoops, let me just get that off. Yeah, same thing with the Joule. Actually, yesterday ended up actually firing a sell signal right at the top of that rally. Do I consider that a sell signal though? Looking at this right over here, I never take signals in this area. It just doesn't stay down in this area for too long, and there's not all that much meat on the bones left. So that would be suggesting that, yes, if Bitcoin does turn down here, do I think that it actually flushes all the way down to new lows? I would say that this would suggest otherwise. And hey, who do we got in here? Whoops, let me just get that off and get this on over here. What's up? Welcome, Becca B. Good to meet you. Good to have you in here. Pleasure as always. And just going off the daily, yeah, everything just looking like it wants to have a little bit more continuation. What about the 2-day right over here? We did just set in a new 2-day and a 3-day, so we actually do have some new things to be looking at. And same thing on the 2-day. You know, the 2-day Stokes are actually certainly getting very, very tired, and hinting at a cross upwards. Now, of course, this is a fresh one. We don't get another 2-day Dodo Stoke, tick until February 2nd. Which is going to be really important for the 4-day as well. But overall, that actually would be suggestive that we are, again, probably not going to flush straight to new lows from this area, whether it puts in a nice prolonged rally up until above 3,500 or not. That's a real question of me. ADI DMX is giving you a fresh short signal as well. The ADX is getting stronger with the last tick, and same thing with the RSI right over here. But the RSI is telling me a lot more on the 2-day. And again, I actually put a lot more weight on the 2-day than the daily, especially in a 24/7 market. It gets rid of a lot of the bullshit bullshit noise. But between this point and this point right over here, hidden bearish divergence on the RSI, lower highs on price action, higher highs in the oscillator, and the overall context of downtrend. Probably going to pop back down here, and again, it has plenty of room to go. Sorry, I mean, does it have plenty of room to go? Well, this is a 2-day dildo time frame, so it's it takes its time. We've been talking about this for over here, I mean, like a month now, quite literally a month. So you can see that, it does hold true, but it takes its time, especially with these higher time frames. But again, just, you can make trading a lot easier on yourself if you just watch the higher time frames. To be honest, I think most people would probably be better if they just only looked at a daily or above, myself included. It just makes life a lot easier. But you know what? Got to be the autistic motherfucker that I am and look at all of the lower time frames. Anyways, 3-day Stokes right over here. Again, rejecting getting out of the neutral zone right over here, and still headed down, still gaining momentum to the downside. And yes, the 3 days better than Tuesdays. Three is better than 1. And same thing on your RSI, just losing that exponential, both trending below. ADI DMX signaling, again, we got a new tick on this guy as well, and the trend is strengthening to the downside. DMI minus certainly dominant right over there. And just looking at this price action, we have a 3-day dildo death cross right over here, and everything is shuffled down below all major movement averages as a 10 simple just kind of gives a last kiss of death right over here. And we start to move a little bit lower. Now here, again, with the Stokes, there is something very important about the 3-day Stokes over here, in that, whenever we get a cross down, it actually does match up with some pretty hefty price action. This was a break of 6,000 right over here. These were dumps within the consolidation, not huge dumps, but it was consolidation. This guy right over here was a dump from 8,000 down to 6,000 right over here. This guy was a dump of 10,000 down to, what was it, like 7,000 or 6,000 down around here. So historically speaking, this has significant implications with price action. That would be on the other side saying, hey, Bitcoin is likely to flush onto new lows from here, which, again, I will actually flesh out this idea a little bit more, but I do want to get through these time frames first and foremost. Now, let's go over to the 4-day. I know I just keep on going on, but the reason why the 4-day is important, because we're about to get a death cross on this guy, and just kind of show you, what happens when you get a death cross. And this is not a picture perfect one, but traditionally speaking, when you get a death cross right over here on the daily, well, nice, big, massive move down right over here. It gets below all major movement averages and then spread them out. What about the 2-day? Well, we have the 2-day dildo death cross happening right over here. It gets below all major movement averages right over here, and then, boom, down. 51% drop, a little bit stronger than that last one. Then we had the 3-day one, which actually didn't have too much of a too much implications right over here, and sending this one down to the prior lows. Actually, about 25% drop. That's certainly not low. And with the 4-day essentially coming up in the next, on February 2nd, it will be confirmed, barring any sort of major run back up into like 5,000, low 5,000s, you will get that death cross. To be a little bit more intense with my speech. I don't want to sugarcoat it. Could that be the impetus for this actually giving out and dropping onto new lows? Well, again, relying in that case, and there are actually, we're going to go over a little bit more in that realm. But yes, this will be confirmed pretty damn soon. Again, below all major movement averages. You also do have 4-hour Stokes about to, confirm a fresh cross down as well. And look at this. You do have a beautiful. You basically have a nice resistance level right here, trying to get out of the bearish control zone ever since, essentially we've been consolidating and broke 6,000 right over here. So this, likely does have implications with price action. Just another thing on a higher time frame suggesting that. Also DMI ADX, again, giving you a short signal, although I don't really consider that a super strong short signal. And the RSI is, below the exponential right over here. And we did print some really significant hidden bearish divergence, in comparison to the 2 days. So that still has some room to play out. Anyways, it is the last day of, so hey, happy end of January. But let's look at the monthly really quick while we're over here. And whoops, let's get off of that. And again, so now I'm going to start to flesh out the scenario, essentially on the side of this thing is likely headed down. Now, okay, so actually, first, before we go through this, let's actually go back to the lower time frames, because it's more important to discuss this first. All right. Okay. So when we spoke yesterday and the day before, basically this was the area to watch for me, 3480. As long as Bitcoin's below that area, I am more immediately bearish, meaning I am looking for shorts. Doesn't mean that it's always going to play out and be to the short side, but as long as you're below that area, it's pretty fucking, it's hard to make a more immediate bullish case. looking at all the higher time frames. Now, if Bitcoin could get back above 35, 30-ish area right over here, this is going to look a lot more like a bull trap, and it's going to look a lot like this, in essentially what we saw over a bounce off the 200 simple right over here, which I never like to be short coming into, which you can definitely say that we have already tested it on this weekly dildo over here. Now, I think a lot of people are looking at this area right over here in similarity to this area right over here, which I do agree with. There are a lot of similarities between it. The biggest thing that people are kind of getting on is that Bitcoin's going to pump back up, to like 43, 4,400, something like that, and put in a slightly higher high on a weekly dildo right over here, which is that possible? It certainly is. But my big area for essentially being demonstrative of that is going back into the 4-hour and going back to our GDAX chart over here is that 35, 30-ish area right over here. As long as Bitcoin is below there, I think that we've already actually played that out. If Bitcoin gets back above 35, 30, then yes, then I do then I do get on board with that idea, thinking that Bitcoin very likely has a quick move to 3,800, basically just kind of meeting this downtrend at the very least right over here. And then probably even above, So it'd be great to wash out all of the over-aggressive shorters. But as you can see over here on Datamish, we actually have significantly more longs and shorts, over 31,000 longs versus 27,500 open shorts, with 3,500 of those hedged. So it's really 24,000 open shorts, I should say, versus over 31,000 open longs, which is, significant. So my point is that as long as Bitcoin is below 35.30, I'm not on the side of that actually happening. And looking at the higher timeframes here, it would be the right thing to do, or the right thing in my opinion would be to be looking for the short, as long as we are definitely respecting this area right over here. But as soon as Bitcoin gets above 35.30 over here, this would be a bear trap. And yes, then I do think that we have a quick move up to here and then probably even beyond. So again, are there a lot of similarities between that area and the area that we're currently looking at? Absolutely. Absolutely. Between this area right over here and this area right over here, extremely similar. Just going back into 2014 over here, we had basically a descending triangle right over here coming off of a parabolic top, and we break that down, putting in a massive red dildo party all the way down to 52.5% down. And then what happens after that? It pumps back up about 26, 25%, something like that. Coming over here to 2018, we have about the same thing with a descending triangle breaking down into, what is that? A 51% breakdown, versus a 52.5% breakdown. It doesn't need to be the exact same. And then after that, it pumps back up about 20, 25%. We could just kind of average that out over the course of, well, this is about 2.5 months right over here of price action, and this is also about 2.5 months of price action right over here. Not only that, but if we do actually bring out the good old MVT signal, which I do put a lot of weight on because it is divorced from price action and in time, in the way that we look at the other indicators, it is essentially the network value divided by the daily transaction value, and then interpolated using forward back moving average, 90-day moving average, actually. So that's why the weekly does not fucking work on this one. I get a billion messages a day about this. Crown, have you looked at the weekly on the MVT signal? It's flashing a buy. It's like, yeah, that's because it's not supposed to be used on a weekly. But anyways, this thing, if you're not familiar with it, calls tops and bottoms like it's a goddamn job. Doesn't mean that it's going to be the top or the bottom, but it's definitely a market pivot point, as you had right over here on 20,000, then 6,000 over here. Then I would argue that you even had another bubble right over here, and then it starts flashing red once again once this bull trap over here was put in. Going back on over to 2014, let's just see what the MVT was reading around that area. Again, same sort of thing. You have your parabolic blow off top right over here, flashing red, and then what happens over here? You have your bull trap in this area, and then it breaks down just in that area that we just looked at right over here. So let's bring out the MVT signal again. We're going to be looking at we're going to be looking at this area right over here, and it's straddling the 90 area. So again, nowhere near the ultimate low. Let's just mark this off around 90 again. And scroll over into 2019 now, our current timing, and look at that. It's really convoluted right now. I do apologize about that, but basically we are literally on the same reading of this. So again, looking at this, it is very interesting to me that a completely just external factor is also agreeing with this. So that would be suggesting that this has already actually played out. And in fact, I'm going to put it on for one more second. I do have a few more things to say about it before I move on. But on the MVT signal, right, let's go back. We got to go back to 2014. And now I'm going to start building out the case for this having the more immediate flush out. Basically, going back to 2014 over here, you do see you do see, as we saw on the weekly, a higher high being put in right over here after this consolidation. Now, if we go into the MVT signal, you do see, you see the same thing on the MVT signal right over here. You make a higher high right over here, and then it breaks down again over the course of about 6 weeks. Well, if we go back into 2019, have we done the same thing on the MVT? Actually, we have. We made a higher high right over here on the MVT. It's not as pronounced as 2014, but that also could be a testament to just the fact that, it's less flighty now. While liquidity is certainly not like top notch in this market, it is certainly better than 2014, 2015. So you don't get those super, super pronounced moves that you got back then, although the moves are quite literally extremely pronounced already. So it's just a relative thing, right? But according to the MVT, yeah, we did actually kind of play that out already. And I would put more weight on this, to be honest with you. So again, looking at these sorts of external things really does help pull it in and kind of maintain that overall neutral and biasless factor when looking at this. And so I'm going to actually build this up a little bit more. Not only do we have the MVT agreeing that, well, a quick flush further down to new lows is certainly in the cards, but if we bring up if we bring up something that I love to use, it's the Bitcoin historical volatility rank, which, let me just actually bring it up first. Historical. There we go. I want my man Bali Pores over here. There we go. Awesome. And again, if you're not familiar with what volatility is, it's basically just, I don't want to go through the full definition of it because it probably doesn't even make too much sense anyways, but basically, volatility indicators oscillate between 0 and 1. An extremely high volatility indicates that the market is at an inflection point, and an extremely low volatility signals that we're about to break out like significantly. So you'll notice that, whenever it gets super high right over here, that's, your high of 20,000. When it gets super high right over here again, that's your low of 6,000. And each and every time it actually flashes one of those higher levels, demonstrative by this by the coloring in the background, you do have major inflection points on the market. Again, doesn't mean that it's the ultimate top or bottom, but it does tell you when to pay attention. You can see that we never even got up into the ones over here on this last drop. I don't want to build out the case why this is not the low right now. It's just, if you want the full-on explanation of that, go to the playlist titled Long-Term Analysis. It'll go into much more detail, and I want to make this video a little bit shorter. But my point is that let's actually go to a lower time frame. As you can see, perhaps on a 4-hour, on a 4-hour we did flash some pretty hefty right over here, but you can see that it is slowly but surely crawling to a crawl, essentially, if I can be a little even more fucking redundant. But my point is that this is telling us that we're consolidating, obviously, but once this gets to basically where it is right now, a 0 read or anywhere below 0.1, big move incoming. Big move incoming. I mean, every time that you flash this over here, this is a 0, 0, 0. Moves are right around the corner. So if we are going to have a big move from here, does that suggest that it's going to be up or down? It doesn't suggest anything on its own per se. Oh my God, I can't believe I just used that. Just disgusting, Crown. I even refer to myself in the third person. Even more stupid. My God. But my point is that, hey, big move isn't coming. Putting the pieces together, do we have a case for this breaking to new lows? Yes, we do. We certainly do, actually. Because if we go over here to the monthly, now just bringing it full circle, because I started off here and then completely went the other way. Sorry. Very, 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 very distracted today. But right over here, Green 55 Exponential is in grave danger. Oh, I just got filled on what? What did I just get filled on? Oh, I just got filled on puts. Nice. Okay, cool. It's like, what the fuck? Yeah, sometimes those just creep up on you. Anyways, you see this Green 55 exponential moving average right over here. Now, Bitcoin has never broken it in its almost 10-year history or over 10-year history, whatever it is. Going all the way back on over here, we can actually just do it right now. Yeah, July 10th. So it hasn't quite been 10 years just yet. But here's the thing. Is it a big deal that it's going to break it for the first time in history? That's more of a testament to the fact that Bitcoin just hasn't been around all that long, comparatively speaking, to something in traditional markets, which has been around for, 20, 30, 40 years in a lot of cases, and even more in some cases. But traditionally speaking, when you do break the 55, what's the next target likely to be? Right around here, likely around 2400-ish area, with literally less than a day to go, as this is the last day of January. Bitcoin has a lot of work to do to get back above that Green 55 exponential. Now, in no way, shape, or unless if Bitcoin quite literally takes out the high of the prior dildo like this, then I'd be considering perhaps we have a reversal. But for now, even if Bitcoin were to get back above the Green 55 exponential, to me, that's just more consolidation. It means nothing really positive in the overall grand scheme of things. Bitcoin has a lot of work to do because that green 55 exponential is all the way at 3674. 74 and a quarter on the BLX index, and a little bit low, or a little bit higher actually on Bitstamp. So that's why I wanted to show those lower time frames first. If Bitcoin does get above 35.30 today, I believe it was, then this is going to look like a a bear trap, and we're probably going to move higher up into this green 55 exponential moving average, which again, putting it into confluence with what we just looked at on the volatility rank, the historical volatility rank, that's suggesting a big move is incoming. So would it have the juice to do that? Perhaps. Or we just completely push off the green 55 exponential moving average right over here and have a nice quick flush. I shouldn't say quick flush down, but likely a quick flush down to like, mid 2000s. What else suggests that? Well, if you go on over here to the Bitstamp chart, we can see very, very easily that if we do put on the volume profile in this area, as soon as we lose this current area, there is no business being done all the way down to, basically mid 2000 right over here. It's very similar to what we had at the 6,000 level right over here, where once you lost 6,000, there ain't nothing doing all the way until this area right over here. And remember how fast that went. It's like a knife through fucking hot butter, right? And overall, you have to be, cognizant of what this implies. I mean, if you run through it on the way up, you're going to likely fall through it on the way down. The saying goes, the saying that my mentor always used to say, the way you go up is the way you come down. And Bitcoin absolutely just shot through this area on the way up. So if it does break this area, this 3250-ish area down around here, it's likely to have a quick shot on the way down. So again, these things, I'm trying to put these all together. I want to be coming from this unbiased. Obviously, my opinion is going to be to the downside in an overall bear market that's been in a downtrend for the last over a year. I'm always going to default to the downside. But this is for you to decide for yourself. I can just present the facts, and that's what technical analysis is about, and then tell you when my opinion's coming up, but I don't trade my opinion. I don't care about my opinion. My opinion is fucking worthless. My opinion is worthless. Technical analysis, though, however, that's something that you can actually trade off. That's something that you can actually, make money off of, a living off of, and that's essentially what I do. But over here, you do see that red 200 simple moving average on the weekly. That is currently coming in around 3,300-ish areas. So whichever one happens first to the downside is what I'd be going with. And the two cases, the two scenarios are either one, a weekly doodle closing below that red 200 simple moving average, which we'll have to wait until at least Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern time, or if a daily closes below our 3250-ish support down around here, then yes, I would be looking for that quick flush, and then we can talk about where it's likely to go to. But right around here, let's actually just flush out the lower time frames a little bit more. We can actually do this on a 4-hour. It's going to make a little bit more sense. Let's actually just draw this out. I haven't made any lines in my chart just yet, but basically we have this guy down around here. That's your 3250-ish area. Then we got, I guess I did make a few lines. So that's a big support to hold. As long as Bitcoin's holding this area right over here, I don't want to be, from a price action perspective, which I put the most weight on, I don't want to be thinking, oh shit, we're about to have a massive flush down once again. And as you can see, Bitcoin has some nice buffer zone before that area. But again, as long as Bitcoin's below this 3530 share right over here, I am leaning towards that happening, to be very clear. So again, trading is all about risk reward and statistical setups. And this is the statistical setup that I love. I did take a trade on my main account. I got a much better position on this last pump right over here. My streamer account, as you can see, did not get nearly as good of a position, but I'm happy to have that as well. Short 61 Bitcoins, it looks like. With probably bigger positional deltas as well, because I own some of those puts. So yeah, looking at this area and looking at the 4-hour, I don't like the way that this is situated. The fact that Bitcoin just popped back up here and was rejected pretty damn heftily off the 3470-ish, 3460-ish 9-ish resistance that we were following last night. To me, that was a pretty, normal and natural thing to pop back over there. Remember, putting on this area right over here, let's put on a fib. Let's put on a fib, which again, I don't, I like using fibs to understand what the bots and algos are doing. And there's something very apparent to be aware of over here. Now, you'll notice that Bitcoin essentially was consolidating around the 618 for, the past prior month and a half, 2 months, or whatever it was over here. Basically you had this run off the lows, pop back down to the 618, bots and algos buy, and what's their target going to be? Right around here, around the 236, pops back down to the 618, gets picked up once again. What's their target going to be? 382 right over here, pops back down to the 618. What's their target going to be? The 0.5. So this was very revealing what the bots and algos were doing. They were walking it down. They were walking it down with sell programs. Now, once we break the 618 and we pop back down to the 786 right over here, which is going to be the next target, If Bitcoin gets back above the 618, then yes, I am thinking bear trap. But as long as we are nowhere near the 618 over here and using this guy as resistance, to me, the selling is about to intensify most likely. It's most likely about to intensify. Now, we do have a very obvious horizontal right over here, right around 3360-ish area. So, of course, don't want to get too damn bearish until this area actually breaks. But remember, this has not gone away. This symmetrical triangle right over here, this guy right over here is still very much in play. And he does have a measure move all the way down around here, which, oh, look at that, pointing all the way down here to the 3250-ish area, the 886 Fibonacci retracement as well. By the way, if this area does hold, what's the target going to be? Probably around here. And this symmetrical triangle is still very much in play as long as we are below the breakdown point, and that's all the way at 3830-ish area. So Bitcoin's got a lot of work to do. Again, does that mean that Bitcoin can't reverse here and take out this level? Doesn't mean that at all. But when I'm building up the cases, I am, and I'm looking for trades, I'm going to come with that assumption. If Bitcoin does, though, again, I always want to repeat this, where I know that I'm wrong. If Bitcoin gets above here, warning sign. If Bitcoin gets above here, don't want to be short. Don't want to be short at all. But again, until that happens, I mean, essentially all we're doing is just, creating more lower highs within the overall spectrum of this. And yeah, this is technically a descending triangle as it stands. Not the most beautiful one of all time, but it does have a measure move on it. So now we can actually talk about a target if this area does break. 3250 on a daily is what I'm looking for. And let's scroll back on outwards. And where does this target actually end up around? Oh my God, 2350. Remember where the monthly 89 exponential was? The cyan one right over here. Let's just go back to it really, really quickly. That's right around 2350, 2400 as well. But wait, there's more. Let's go to the weekly 377 exponential, which is just an extremely important one from traditional markets, coming in around 2600-ish area. And if we go back to the Bitstamp chart right over here, and remember the volume profile suggesting the quick flush was down into the mid 2000s. Well, that also is, encompassed by this blue box territory, which also is the 886 Fibonacci retracement, which is where Bitcoin actually did bottom out in 2014. Doesn't mean that it's guaranteed to bottom out there this time around, but it is interesting to look at. And also we do have some nice historical horizontal trend lines coming around that area as well. So a lot of things, marking around that area, and that is where I look to if Bitcoin does initiate the flush, so to speak. But again, a long day ahead. A lot can happen in the span of, what is it, like 15 or 16 hours now. In Bitcoin land, we've seen Bitcoin do much crazier things just in the span of 1 minute, on Finex maintenance, fun times. So again, looking at this, that's essentially how I'm going to be trading this and how I am positioning myself. And going back to the lower time frames right over here, I mean, this to me just looks like, another rejection, really. I mean, let's go to the 9 hour. 9 hours, a major wick off that 21 exponential moving average right over there. As long as you're respecting that guy, I don't really have any reason to be bullish from a lower time frame perspective. 10 simple cradling price action, but after a rejection like that, I don't know, man. Let's go check out our 4-hour oscillators. I'm curious what they're saying. We haven't really looked at them just yet. Let me just get rid of this, and let's actually get rid of this too. And let's go over here. 4-hour Stokes are getting a little bit tired. Not crossed down at all yet. What about the 3 hours? Have they crossed down? Yes, they have. What about the 2 hours? Have they crossed down? Yes, they have. What about the hourly? They have been down for a while. So yeah, everything up to a 3 hour is crossed down, and wanting to go more down, in my opinion, I will probably add a little bit somewhere right around here just to put on a trade, and again be managing somewhere right around here, 3450-ish area. Right in this pocket, right around 3460 to 3475-ish area. As long as we're below there, I do want to have that position on as this is, it's quite an interesting move. I mean, you could even put in a rising channel right over here. Is it a bear flag? Is it not? I mean, I want to remain more agnostic than anything when talking about price action here, but could we do that? Yeah, we could. Could this be a bear flag? Yeah, it certainly can. Let's actually just do it out. And I don't even have it done super right, but let's see where that lines up with. Does it line up with anything else that we've been looking at? Perhaps. Oh my God. Is that a measure move down to 3250, which is also the measure move of this symmetrical triangle right over here, which is also the 886 Fibonacci retracement on our fibs over here? But again, remember, Bitcoin has to close a daily below that area for me to get super, super bearish, looking for the new lows. Until that happens, we can still do similar to what happened in 2014, 2015, where it got picked up off the lows once again and then actually ran up to a new higher high. But remember, going off the MBT signal, going off the other indicators, I think that that's unlikely. If I'm giving my opinion, I believe that that's unlikely. But hey, it's in the cards. So how to protect against that? Again, I keep on repeating this, but it's very important. 35, 35, 30. You get above there. Don't want to be short if that happens. Really don't want to be short. Let's go check out CMEs. CME is the easier chart to read in my opinion. And same sort of a thing over here. In fact, you got the same sort of symmetrical triangle, and then it actually morphed into a descending triangle right over here, which we did not see on we did not see on spot exchanges actually. So this is only on CMEs, and then that measure move was hit all the way down here to the 786, which is where we are on current markets, and getting rejected right over here before turning down once again. Do we have anything to be aware of on our oscillators over here? Are we getting any sort of different read? No, we're not on the 4 hours. What about 3 hours? 3 hours cross down as well. Yeah. So. Oops, let's get that off and get that back on over there. So yeah, not really telling us too much unique things about price action. We have to go to Mr. Buterol for the rubber maker and see what he's saying. Mr. Buterol essentially saying, oops, let's get this guy off. Again, you know, as long as you're below this 114-ish area on Finex, I would be bearish off this. Beautiful Wyckoff distribution top, getting marked down, redistribute in this descending triangle right over here. Measure move off that descending triangle, met right over here. Actually front ran a little bit off to 786. Oh, that sounds familiar. And getting rejected right over here, not able to get back above the critical 618, I would be bearish off that. That is inside on what the Boston algos are likely doing. The volume characteristics of this still very corrective in nature, and I've not really gotten the full go-ahead on an actual big move to be played out, funnily enough. So today is going to be a fun day, whichever way that it does go, whether it takes out the 618 or it takes out the 786 first, whichever one happens first, essentially. It should be a very fun day. Again, you know, looking at the volatility rank, looking at all these things, we have a lot to be aware of. GBDC over here, GBDC, same sort of a thing. Broke the bear flag to the downside to begin the week. Comebacks up to try to retest it, reject, and yeah, as long as we're living below $4.13, you know, that is a breakdown to me. Although, again, could this be a bear trap over here? I mean, it's very low volume on this pump back up, but you know, I'll go with price action until told otherwise. Okay, let's go on to traditional markets now. SPYs over here. SPYs pumping up pretty damn heftily to end the day. I think that this is best viewed on a daily, but basically we spoke about the what's it called, ascending triangle or bull pennant right over here, and that did take off. Daily did take a stab at the 200 exponential right over here. You know, this is kind of coming off of you know, Fed interest rates, all that kind of talk, but this was, you know, more or less expected. So a lot of the times these moves actually do get faded, to be honest with you. But you know, after coming off of it like this, I would be careful. I'd be really fucking careful, man. If you know, I'd be using still 269. So if I were trading this, you know, I actually would have taken a short right over here, and I would have been taken out. I would have taken a loss on this. But again, you know, that's trading. It's nothing's guaranteed. But I actually would take another position right here at about 269, and try a trade there with the risk management right above. Why do I like these trades? Because you don't have to risk too much to find out if you're going to be right or wrong. Now if SPYs do close the daily above 269, then I think I no longer think it's bear market time. In fact, you know, the biggest news for me on SPYs is, where does this monthly close? Do we close above or below the 21 exponential, which is all the way at 262? I mean, it's significantly higher than that right now. It's all the way at 267.5. So I you know, this is why, really, you know, if, you know, when I speak about SPYs, yes, we can look at the lower time frames, but the higher time frames matter most. And, you know, if I really want to put on a real trade, like a real positional directional trade, you have to wait for the monthly to actually set itself. And, you know, while it did have a lot of workaround around this area, right now it is, you know, it's likely to close above, I'd say. And I would not want to be short if this closes above at all. So again, you know, it's one of those things where people get over aggressive in this area, and all you had to do is just watch the monthly. That's all you had to do. Don't try to be the hero shorting every little bounce up. I mean, the weekly has continuation as well. I mean, weekly and monthly want to, I mean, you know, I would make me, if I look at this, then I would say that daily trade I was just thinking about, fuck no. But hey, you know, it's similar to Bitcoin. Well, it's actually not similar to Bitcoin. This one's actually like had a significant rally off the lows. Bitcoin did not, comparatively speaking. So again, just one of those things where, put this into perspective, you know, all you had to do is just watch the higher time frames, and this is the area to watch. Yeah, I mean, really no trade should have been made until waiting for the monthly, and the monthly is likely to close above now. So really, the only trade I'd be looking at is, Maybe, I mean, maybe even longing, but again, you still have to wait for that as well. I wouldn't even want to trade this for the next week, or sorry, for the next month. I really want to just watch and see, because this is going to be, today is going to be so fucking important, man, for not just Bitcoin, but also SPYs. Do we close above or below this area right over here? That's a big question. If we close below, then yeah, fuck yeah, I'd put a short on. But for now, no, thank you. No, thank you. I'll just wait and watch. Okay, cool. So we talked about that. Mr. Ripple is having a phenomenal run yesterday, but again, this is what technical analysis is for. Did we take out any of the major levels on yesterday's run? No. Everyone getting extremely excited about a run because, well, everyone gets excited when anything happens in cryptocurrency land, as you should. This area is volatile and it's fun, and I would never short Ripple. I have a strong religious belief to never short Ripple, because you never know when Garlic House is gonna flip that goddamn switch and this thing goes to the fucking moon. But in a more serious tone, no, I do not short Ripple, because it is news and event driven, and I don't like playing that. You just never know. You never. I saw so many people go broke trying to short this, go on the way up. I literally saw significant a lot of people literally lose their accounts trying to short this on the way up. I don't short Ripples, but as far as charts go, this is not good right over here. Again, as long as you're below 34.5 cents, there's nothing different happening. So understand. I mean, even as long as you're below the 10 symbol right over here, it's still quite weak. So as always, are people justified in getting excited over this? I would say no, not quite yet. Not quite yet. To me, this looks like another likely rejection, actually. So, again, I also don't. I would never trade Ripple. It's not like, you don't want to trade Ripple. You want to trade something that like is normal. Maybe invest in Ripple. I don't know. Again, I shouldn't even say that, man. The gangs will come after me. I don't really have any strong opinion on Ripple either way, one way or the other. I don't know anything about its fundamentals. I don't know anything about fucking Garlic House or anything like that. I do know that we have a measure move going down at -$2, so perhaps you might be owing some money if you do own these bitches. But again, in a more serious tone, as long as you're below 34.5 cents, nothing to really see here. If you can break above 34.5 cents, then yeah, we likely have 40 cent region in play, as far as TA goes. But again, I don't really like that one, because it doesn't really respect technical analysis all that much. Stellar over here looking extremely weak, coming all the way down to this 8 cent support. Again, 3-day dealer death cross right over here. This looks eerily similar to Bitcoin, and then gets shoved off the cliff below all major moving averages, getting stonewalled right over here, not even catching wind of Mr. Ripple's rally. Again, I see divergence between these two as this one moves lower and Ripple's moves a little bit, tries to put in a rally. But again, trying to defend this last line of support right over here is, again, a very lackluster response, honestly, yesterday. Even with the help of Mr. Ripples, the volume on this guy nowhere near the dumping volume beforehand. This is an extremely ugly chart. Again, even with this being an extremely ugly chart, at least it has not pumped all the way up and then dumped all the way back down and lower. I mean, that's a positive sign, but this thing is likely to go lower, is my point. I would not be surprised if you find this thing at 6 cent region, maybe even 4 cent region. If things get really bad, then 2.5 cent region. This is not fucking good. This is really, really not good. Do we have anything to look at on the oscillators? Not really. I mean, they're just saying this shit is bearish. This shit be bearish, if that's even a saying. But yeah, overall, man, I look at this chart as like a major alt essentially, and it's, a lot of the times you'll see moves in the soldiers before they happen in the generals. And I consider like Bitcoin and then the top 3 market caps, like maybe it's like Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Litecoin, or I guess Ripple is in there, but Ripple's like kind of its own. Ripple's kind of its own thing, in my opinion. Although it does follow Bitcoin majorly, but those are like the generals, right? And the generals need the soldiers to follow them. Otherwise, the market is weak. And you see weakness in the soldiers first. So when the soldiers stop following the generals, typically market doesn't look too good. So a lot of times you'll see these alts just start to roll over, and then Bitcoin, Buteral, and Mrs. Litecoin start to play rollover as well. Not always, but just something, this is more like knowledge from traditional markets, but has held true, at least in my experience, in Bitcoin land. So have we spoken enough now? We spoke, how long has this video been going? I don't even know. I don't even know. This one feels like a shorter one, so I'm gonna be surprised if I close this one, it's like an hour long again, which is what happened yesterday. So I do apologize about that. But again, I make these videos for the people who really want to go like super deep into this, because I'm basically autistic when it comes to charts, and you know, if you enjoy that as well, then we're gonna probably get along. And this is, you know, this is for those types of people, because I do get a lot of complaints that like these videos are getting too long. Well, I mean, again, I'm not like a professional YouTuber. I'm a professional trader, man. I make my money from trading. So I'm just kind of doing this because I enjoy doing it, and just met so many fucking cool people, man. So like literally so many cool people. You'd be surprised at some of the names that are in this community right now. It's really shocking. I don't believe that they want me to reveal their names, but you're in good company if you're in here, and that's super cool, man. And it's just, you know, just so many good stories, also just so many fucking good stories. Anyways, okay. Jesus Christ, man, getting way off track. Let's go down to the very low time frames. We got the 30-minute right over here. Still struggling. You know, if you are looking at this as a rising channel, it has confirmed a break. It looks like we did try to kind of retest it right over here. I was trying to actually add to my position somewhere right around $35, $34 or something like that. Looks like that's probably not going to happen. I should just delete that position. If it does get back around here, I don't think that I want it. But yeah, to wrap this bitch up, let's wrap it up in a few different sentences. Okay. As long as Bitcoin is below this 34.75-ish range right over here, I am opinion bearish, and I'm position bearish, and I'm happy to be so. If Bitcoin gets above this area, it's not necessarily over for the bears in the more immediate case, but I would de-risk, and I would certainly de-risk above 35.30. All risk off. I don't want to have any shorts open. Maybe even consider a little bit of a long, because I do believe that you'd likely get a run up into the high 3,000s and low 4,000s after that, as per what we looked at in 2014 with the MBT signal and also the monthly. But you know, keep in mind the monthly close tonight, so that's going to be the most important thing. Do we close above or below that green 55 exponential all the way at 3670-ish area? That's going to be the next big thing to be aware of. Now, to the downside, it's a little bit more tricky. You know, you do have the support right over here at 3360-ish area. That's a current low. If that area breaks, then yes, I do look towards 3250 right over here. You know, fulfill the measure move off this guy over here, which, you know, still very much in play as long as we're just making these lower highs, these series of lower highs as we work our way downwards. And then if this 3250 area breaks on a daily, I would be looking for that flush down to those new levels. So again, when it comes down to it, you know, I do believe that a big move is likely coming today. You know, looking at the monthly, looking at the historical volatility rank, looking at, you know, even the MBT signal and all these other, and all of our other indicators, our trending indicators and our consolidation area indicators, they are suggesting, you know, watch out, watch fucking out. Again, even just in the most basic of basic ways, looking at this volume signature right over here, you see it get slowly but surely down to that small pitter patter, which is typically where big moves do happen. It's telling you that the consolidation is ready. He's been baking at 350 degrees Fahrenheit, and he is ready to explode. So again, opinion bearish right now, position bearish as long as we're below here. Just to wrap this up one more time, I am short from 34.23. I will de-risk on this account. Again, my streamer account just doesn't get as good at positions as my main account, just because, well, that's, you know, it takes my main account to take precedent. I do own some of the puts over here just because they're super cheap, and you know, it's like if I do want to play that move below 32.50, if it happens, then I'd rather do it with puts rather than shorting right now, just because, you know, if a move to the upside does happen, it's gonna happen relatively quickly. So I want to be more safe than sorry right now, and overall, you know, pretty happy with where the account is. So yeah, that's gonna do it for today. I'll be back on with a live stream a little bit later at the usual time, 10:30 a.m. EST. I look forward to seeing you there. It's been a pleasure speaking with you as always. I wish you well. I wish you a very happy Thursday. Oh my God, this year is already flying by. It's January. It's literally the end of January. So I hope that you're doing well, and I'll be back on later. So look forward to seeing you there. If not, again, hope you have a great day and take care. See you soon.
Trace Mayer, who shared the story of Bitcoin when it was $1 a coin, is a legend in this sector. Through his various websites, ventures, and podcasts, he is one of the most recognized people in the industry. In fact, he is so influential that we created an entire exclusive report, not found anywhere else, with every forecast and achievement he has pulled off in a few short years. Go to portfoliowealthglobal.com/trace right now, where his history of accurate ideas is laid out in full.
Welcome to Cryptocurrencies, the Future of Digital Money show at PortfolioWealthGlobal.com. My name is Michelle Holliday. Joining us today is one of my favorite guests. He is a Bitcoin investor who has funded much of Bitcoin's infrastructure, including Armory for Bitcoin wallets, BitPay, and Kraken. He is one of the original pioneer investors in this sector. He is also the host of the very popular Bitcoin Knowledge podcast, Mr. Trace Mayer. We're welcoming Trace back to the show today to provide an insight on just what is happening, because it appears that we have experienced a kind of bomb inside the cryptocurrency realm going off, sending all coins down by at least 80% and sometimes 100%. ICOs are failing miserably, and the headlines of RIP Bitcoin is everywhere. So let's get past all of this gloom and doom and welcome our guest. Trace, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Oh, perfect timing, too. We want to get your thoughts right now on what's happening. It seems almost unbelievable to watch how an asset like Bitcoin can go from $20,000 down to $3,500 without any news of critical problems surfacing. But it's not the first time that Bitcoin has done this. So I'd love for us to go through a little bit of your background, how you first got into Bitcoin, what you first purchased it at, and please take us through these bear markets and how they feel, because you've been through this several times.
I've been through all of them. So for me, it's kind of old hat.
Right.
I put out a tweet recently about how hodlers of last resort all have gnarly battle wounds and war stories to tell. And so, and the video, the YouTube that I put on that tweet, it's actually this poor guy went on a hang gliding trip in Switzerland, and the pilot forgot to strap him in on the harness. So
wow.
he was literally like holding on for dear life, right? For a couple minutes, flying around for to like a couple thousand feet above the ground. But that can be what it feels like for the uninitiated, for the new people into the Bitcoin space. And a lot of people, they take this, they get shaken out for whatever reason. Maybe they over allocated themselves. Maybe they just don't have the stomach to hold on. And, that's too bad for them, because I mean, look at past history. We've had multiple crashes all like this. One time we had it go down 30% in a couple hours in 2013. Like, if you get shaken out, if you lack the conviction, if you lack the financial strength and mental discipline and emotional discipline to be able to hold a position because you just don't have conviction, then, like, I kind of look at it as good riddance, because I'm in there buying at times like these. When the Mayer multiple gets below 0.6, it's just like free money as far as I'm concerned. And I was actually trying to get a deal done yesterday where I would purchase June 2020 5K strike call options on Bitcoin. And so, that would, based on the premium that we were negotiating and everything, it would basically enable me to about 4x the return relative to buying just Bitcoin itself with the same amount of capital. And so now that we've got these derivative markets that are coming online, LedgerX has been open for over a year. Bakkt is coming online. NASDAQ has talked about it. Fidelity wants to move into the space. Like, really? Does it have that much further to go down than $3,500? And when you're looking at a 0.53 Mayer multiple, it's been higher than that 98% of the time. Like, just statistically, it's very much in your favor for some type of short-term mean reversion correction. I guess it could keep going down, but it's just not statistically very probable. And so, you know, that's how I approach this and how I have approached this for about a decade now. I mean, Bitcoin's not new. Bitcoin's a decade old next month. Like, people who don't understand it, who haven't done the research, who haven't figured out how to buy it and secure it and hold it, like, they're just being lazy, procrastinating. They're allocating their resources where they think they'll get a better return. And so as this wealth transfer continues to happen, I just am getting less and less sympathetic or empathetic to people on that side of the trade, because this is a zero-sum game. There are a limited number of Satoshis on the Bitcoin blockchain. Like, you're either going to get some or you're not. And if you don't have any, and it does become something, you haven't hedged yourself. That was one of the first things that Satoshi talked about, is that you might want to get some just in case it becomes something. It could become a self-fulfilling prophecy. And so, you know, that's what we're going through. We're going through this price discovery process. We're going through this human capital accumulation process that gives you the optionality to then buy Bitcoins in larger amounts if you want to. And so people who haven't availed themselves of this, like, sorry, you know, like, if you miss out on another 20x or 30x bull run, it's your own fault this time. And it's your own fault if your retirement account doesn't have purchasing power on the other side of this. I mean, it's just the way it's going to be. And I think a lot of people also take for granted the generosity and the altruism that a lot in the Bitcoin space have done, like myself, funding software that you could use it with, talking about it publicly. Guess what? The wagons are getting circled. There's a lot of disinformation and misinformation out in the space. So it's becoming harder and harder for people to hone in on signal as opposed to noise. And there's also financial incentive for people in a rivalrous environment like this, with something that's strictly limited in amount, to make sure that it's very difficult for people to be able to understand and properly purchase this stuff, right? Because you don't, like, you want to buy the cheap Bitcoin. You don't want other people to buy the cheap Bitcoin, because they drive the price up relative to you. Yeah.
This is the dip. I mean, this is it. This is it. How much further down can this go?
Well, I mean, I guess it could go to zero technically, but I highly doubt it. It just doesn't look very probable. And every day that goes by with Bitcoin continuing to exist and continuing to never have a security issue or incident, like, the more confidence you can have in it.
Now, Trace, is there something in your mind and your perspective that could cause Bitcoin to fail? Because if we all believe in it 100% that it will succeed, and we're all confident in buying it right now to make a fortune, what are the risks, if any, that are involved?
Well, I mean, we don't believe in it any more than we believe in physics or mathematics.
Right.
And sure, there are some issues. We've had to make trade-offs because of, you know, we just don't have formal proofs in very obscure areas of number theory and discrete log and stuff like that. And so we've had to make trade-offs when it comes to anonymity or limited in amountness. But now we've got side chains that are coming online, things like Liquid. We've got extensibility. We've got Lightning Network. I mean, at the end of the day, like, this is not some, like, Bitcoin cult where we all just, I believe in my Bitcoin. Like, no, I mean, don't trust, verify. Like, that is our credo. That is our credo. Like, don't trust, verify. Like, this is a tool that you're able to interact with regardless of any third parties. Like, this has become a force in nature, being able to interact with the Bitcoin network. It can't just not interact with you. It follows certain protocol, right? It's an internet protocol. Like, this is math and this is physics, and so don't trust, verify, you know, like, it's like gravity. I mean, do you believe there's gravity? Like, I mean, I guess you could believe there's gravity, but for any practical purpose, if you believe there is not gravity, good luck with that.
Shifting gears just a little bit, please talk about Bakkt, what it is and how important is it?
Yeah, so Bakkt is a new startup that is backed, ironically, by the New York Stock Exchange owners, CME, ICE, the largest exchanges in the world. I mean, these are the 800-pound gorillas. They've now started Bakkt, and they've done this partnerships with Microsoft and Starbucks. I mean, Starbucks has 15 million people that uses its mobile wallet app for mobile payments. I mean, and so they're going to roll out next day Bitcoin swaps, and then they're going to have different futures, kind of like LedgerX has, puts and call options. And then they're going to be rolling out stuff into Starbucks' wallet or through the Microsoft ecosystem. I mean, imagine if Fortnite's doing microtransactions, settling via Bitcoin, and you're hedging the exchange rate risk on Bakkt with derivatives. I mean, this is sixth network effect of financialization, first and second and third network effects of speculation, merchants and consumers. Because Bitcoin's the most secure blockchain, that's why they're doing all of this on Bitcoin instead of some other just joke, because we got a lot of jokes in this industry. And,
right.
And then fifth network effect of developers. I mean, these are going to be developers that are building applications and projects on top of Bitcoin because of all of this financialization infrastructure. So I'm very excited about Bakkt. I'm very excited about NASDAQ doing the same type of thing. LedgerX is already doing it. It's awesome. And then you got Fidelity that's looking at coming into this industry too as a major, major custodian, trillions of dollars. I mean, Bitcoin is tiny. It's immaterial. It's not even a rounding error compared to the pools of capital that these types of institutions can bring in. I mean, it's kind of like having an orange and a straw and an ocean. Like, how do you move that capital into something the size of an orange? It doesn't happen. What happens is it's going to hugely increase in size. We saw this with gold ETFs. But gold was already a reserve currency asset for central banks. Bitcoin's owned by retail investors largely. I mean, this is going to be insane.
It's extraordinary, the huge players that are coming in, Trace, and most people don't realize it. Many of the people actually that aren't in Bitcoin yet don't realize the major players, every bank is coming in, it's just extraordinary.
Yeah, but as I said, it's been around for a decade.
Right.
If you're not aware, it's your own fault.
Gotcha.
And you're gonna pay the price financially for your choices. This is about personal responsibility.
Educate yourself.
It's the real deal. And this time it's about money, like huge amounts of money at stake.
What's your prediction on how fast Bitcoin could rise from here? Because this is admittedly a major dip, and it sort of scares everybody in a way, except
doesn't scare me.
Someone like yourself, but someone like myself. What is your prediction time-wise for this bounce back?
I'm ironically, because I've sold call options at very high strike prices, because I'd like to see a new crop of Bitcoin miners that are more friendly to core instead of these clowns that we have, this entire clown car. I would actually like to see it hum around $3,000 for the next 6 to 18 months. I was reading a CoinDesk article, an estimated 600,000 Bitcoin miners were shut down. They're being sold by the kilo for scrap metal. I think that's wonderful. In order to cleanse the ecosystem of misallocated capital when it comes to startups, misallocated capital when it comes to mining, misallocated capital when it comes to a whole host of things. We need to have a cleansing of this ecosystem. And then guess what happens? You can have those Bitcoins transfer to people who are a little bit wiser and better when it comes to allocating their capital. And so what have I been doing? I've been selling covered calls the whole way down and I'm using that premium now with the Mayer multiple at a low level to reacquire more Bitcoins. And so this is how hodlers of last resort can have compounded growth in their Bitcoin holdings.
Now, talk to us a little bit about your Mayer multiple, because I know this was a phrase that was coined about a year ago or so, talking about your particular equation, how you calculate.
Yeah, so it's pretty simple on its face. You take the current price divided by the 200-day moving average, and that gives you a relative price, or the Mayer multiple. And you can use this for any asset exchange ratios. You could do GE shares and gold. You could do Apple shares and Bitcoin. You could do Apple shares and dollars, because the problem is that we have a total free-floating currency system worldwide that has no definition. It's a real problem. Bitcoin is a solid definition, the hardest, strictest definition for money that we've ever had. And so I like to use this Mayer multiple in order to form what I would kind of look at as confidence bands for when it's expensive versus when it's cheap. For example, in December, when it ran to 20,000, it was like a 3.7x Mayer multiple. It had, like 99% of the time, that Mayer multiple had been lower than that. Right now, a couple days ago, when it kind of bottomed in this latest weekly cycle, it hit like 0.53. So 98% of the time, the Mayer multiple has been higher. So from this, I would draw confidence bands that at 20,000 it was expensive, very expensive actually, and at 0.53 or $3,600 a couple days ago, it was very cheap. And so, I look at it when it's very expensive. If you're going to sell, that's the time to sell. And when it's very cheap, if you're going to buy, that's the time to buy. And I'm very patient. As a hodler of last resort, like I'm very, very patient. And so as long as you have a bank account that can hold US dollars in a safe way, then, because the US dollar is the world reserve settlement currency. It's the big deal, right? And so like as this liquidity collapse, as this great credit contraction happens that I wrote a book about a decade ago, and it's playing out exactly how I wrote it would in the book, except now we have Bitcoin. I published the book the same week Bitcoin came out. So
tell everybody the name of the book, Trace.
It's The Great Credit Contraction.
Okay.
And so you go to creditcontraction.com. It's free. You can download it. It's kind of fun to go back and look at it in retrospect. I give an example of a transaction involving a pizza, and it's fun that the first Bitcoin transaction involved a pizza. So it's it's some fun little things in it.
Is that so? The first Bitcoin transaction, consumer wise.
Well, 10,000 Bitcoins for 2 pizzas, right? And that actually took place in my hometown, ironically. Where I grew up. So, but this stuff is really like, short-term people that don't have control over their emotions and want to just day trade versus like investors that have a long time horizon, who have long time preference. And, because this is playing out over a period of years and decades. We're just in the first decade. Like, it's just getting started. Like, we've just had the initial proof of concept. And now we're, the next decade, we're going to have stuff like Lightning Network and Chaumian eCash servers and side chains and all this stuff coming on top of Bitcoin. I mean, Bitcoin as it is for the last 10 years has just been proof of concept.
It's just a baby industry. It's just starting.
It's just a total baby industry. It's just getting started. And yet we see how powerful that first network effect. Oh, you might want to get some just in case it becomes something. It could become a self-fulfilling prophecy. Very understated words from Satoshi, but they're playing out exactly how he said it would. It's amazing just how much foresight Satoshi had in terms of the economics and the game theory and sound money. Satoshi's birthday, you've got Executive Order 6102, and then you've got the relegalized, the closing the gold window for his birthday. You've got these happenings. And why do they happen every 4 years instead of happening in a linear basis or, in a much more less dramatic way? Well, I would say that part of it is in order to restrict the transactional supply of Bitcoin. And when you get a supply shock like that, because the prices are set on the margins, it causes another kind of overshoot because it acts like a Veblen good or a Giffen good because it's strictly limited in amount. So, I mean, Satoshi very well could have put all of this stuff in here in specific ways and for specific reasons, understanding the economics from an Austrian school perspective, understanding the sound money and the monetary theory, and guiding the human action years in advance, right? Like years in advance. I mean, the amount of foresight,
right? Foresight.
Yeah. I mean, this is not an accident. And those who have an understanding of the Austrian School of Economics and those who understand the sound money and understand some of the tech, well, they could have also seen this foresight and could have talked about it. Like, it's really funny, I find that the harder I work and the more I study, the luckier I get. I didn't just get lucky. I mean, seriously, like, you got to chalk it up to luck, like absolve yourself of personal responsibility. Mm-hmm. Like good luck with living in that type of a cognitive dissonance, because you're just going to get wrecked. Because if you don't take personal responsibility with this new age and this new epoch that humanity is going through, this new great corridor and gate, I mean, this is a big deal. This is the largest wealth transfer the world's ever seen. It's likely going to happen in the shortest amount of time ever. And there will probably never be another one of these that happens to humanity, because we've now moved to the hardest, strictest money ever with the difficulty adjustment algorithm. So, I mean, this is like a once in a species opportunity, absent some type of extinction level event or, comet that strikes the Scablands in the Pacific Northwest or whatever. Mm-hmm. I mean, this is just huge, huge deal.
It's an extraordinary time to be alive, because you're right. This is a once in a species happening. I like that term because it's very accurate. Yes. Now, taking us just a little bit into the past, can the case be made that the original Bitcoin transaction was grossly underpriced? Almost giveaways that investors should not be looking back to the 1 cent era as their guide for how far Bitcoin might fall. What is your perspective on this?
Well, all of us act deliberately to bring about some ends, and we value stuff in a comparative value format, goods against other goods. We throw into the mix, and this comes from Mises. We throw into the mix asymmetric knowledge that comes from Hayek and also from Mises, and that's really what we saw in this 1 cent era of Bitcoin. There was just a huge amount of asymmetric knowledge. Satoshi releases the Bitcoin thing on a very obscure cryptography emailing list. I mean, how many people were even interested or even knew what cryptography was? I mean, I did, because I'd been playing with it since I was a little kid in middle school. Right. Oh, I was playing with it in middle school, PGP encryption and growing up in this new era where the internet was brand new and playing around with things like eGold and Gold Money and DigiCash and PGP encryption and BitTorrent and Napster. All of this stuff was just a great preparatory education so that when the Holy Grail came about and was discovered, I was ready for it. And guess what? There were a lot of other people who were ready for it, like Peter Todd. Peter Todd had sent emails to Adam Back clear back in the mid-90s on the cryptography email list. And, is it any surprise that Peter Todd's like a Bitcoin core developer? And then we've got other people like GMax and Peter Woola and Matt Corallo, and so there was just a lot of asymmetric information and asymmetric knowledge. But because people have, through very altruistic means, like myself, have educated many millions of people on this topic. Now that asymmetric knowledge is not, the disparity is not quite as great. And so, there's still billions of people who don't get it or live in cognitive dissonance and I believe in fiat money or whatever.
Right.
I believe in chartalism. Well, regression theory of money from Mises. But who wants to read books that are this thick and dense and complicated? You don't want to do the work. You're just going to get wrecked because you're operating with inferior tools, inferior ideas and knowledge up in your head. And so you get out competed by those that are able to calculate correctly economically. And one of the things we learn from the pricing system from Mises is that those who calculate correctly have gains, and those who calculate incorrectly have losses. And Bitcoin is just going to force this type of reckoning on the world, because we have huge amounts of misallocated capital, governmental interference, illegal tender laws. The World Reserve settlement currency and the entire fiat system with euros and yens and dollars, it is all built on a complete illusion.
Right.
Like I write about in my book. It doesn't even have a definition. It doesn't collapse. It just evaporates into nothing. Just poof, bye-bye goes the Ponzi scam, with Social Security and pension guaranteed benefit corporation and Medicare and Medicaid and all the European social nets, because there's a change in the economics of violence with asymmetric encryption and now getting applied with being able to transfer value over a communications channel with Bitcoin. It's a new epic, great gate of history that humanity is going through. And there's going to be a lot up for grabs. There is a lot up for grabs all at once. Who's going to actually have the fox? Who's going to catch the rabbit is probably going to be hodlers of last resort, because they're just buying and accumulating and they're never selling. They never get shaken out of their position. They're equity based, can't be seized or confiscated. They're possessing their own private keys, doing it properly. Good luck, competing with that.
And you're right. It's very fortunate, and it's shame on people that don't know about this already because they're not economically versed. People such as yourself that really are, that came up economically focused. Myself, I came up not economically focused.
But why is that? It's because I'm reading big, thick economics books instead of watching the Flintstones. You know what I'm saying? There's people have priorities in how they allocate their most important asset, which is their time.
Yes.
And then how they allocate their health. I don't drink alcohol. I don't even drink coffee. I have a very clean diet. I take very good care of my health. So I'm able to think clearly, right? My brain works.
Right.
I sleep a lot. I try to take care of myself. And so I have the human capital, the hardware, to apply the software of the thinking, by consuming the books instead of watching Flintstones or whatever the thing is. I bet if people actually kept a tally of how much time they spend on different things, it would just blow them away, and I look at a book and it's oh, that book's going to take me 8 hours. Oh, the Bitcoin Standard, that's going to take about 12 hours to read. Great book. So are you going to read the Bitcoin Standard with your 12 hours? Is that how you're going to allocate your capital? Or are you going to watch a season of whatever ding dong
the Kardashian
show is on Amazon Prime or on TV or whatever? And also, I don't have cable. So guess what I've done with money that most people would allocate to a cable bill? I bought Bitcoin.
Of course.
Right.
You bought the dip.
It's all fun and games when you're spending $100 a month on cable and Bitcoin's $1. That's 100 Bitcoins a month.
Right.
Right. Which is now that's 1,200 Bitcoins in a year. And let's give it $5,000. You're talking what would that be? Almost $6 million. And that was just 1 year, right? And Bitcoin's been around 10 years.
Yep.
So the return on investment that you get from investing in yourself, in your health, and in your mind, and in the ideas that you populate your mind with, and then, hopefully getting your heart like focused in the right direction, your emotions, because that's what drives your mind. Is like Bitcoin is bringing order. It is bringing order to this planet, because this planet's been out of order because we've had a financial system that's been out of order and undefined. And now we're bringing sound money and hard money, and it's going to bring order back to this planet. And, like, you want to dink around like watching the Kardashians or whatever, you're going to be cleaning toilets or doing something, right? Like, you're not going to have the free time, because it is going to be strict on those resources, very strict on the resources.
And it's moving so swiftly. And I just think, in society, you're educated. When you're brought up in the public education system, you're sort of programmed. You really are. And you're programmed to go along with what everybody else is doing. And then they show you what everybody else is doing. So it's tough to wake up to the fact that maybe what you've been taught and what you believe and what you rely on, you need to look in a different direction, and you need to think for yourself. And I think that that's the challenge that mass populations have right now in even accepting Bitcoin, because once it's accepted, it's going to be on a massive scale. It's going to be so expensive that it's unfortunate.
Well, it's, I think it happens one hodler at a time, but I went to public school, like,
you're like, why? What?
I'm still able to think.
Of course.
Like, I'm like, but I guess perhaps part of it is because I've sought out solutions, right? I'm very practical and very pragmatic. I'm not just going to do something because somebody tells me to. Like, I've always kind of had this ethos of don't trust, verify. Like, I've always kind of, taken in all the information, processed and attempted to synthesize it, and then made my own decisions. So I've always kind of had that personal responsibility streak in there too. And now it's just getting crazy, because with backed and institutional money, the rate of speed at which capital could come into this relative to its current size and the amount of capital that's out there, it's so insane. We now have $257 trillion of debt. That's like Chancellor on the second brink of bailouts, right? Like, that's the newspaper that Satoshi put the headline in the Genesis block of Bitcoin. We have $87 trillion more debt than we did in the financial crisis of 2007, 2008. Like, I don't know where people think the world economy gets the productive ability to service that amount of debt. Plus, who knows how much more we have in terms of unfunded government liabilities or other liabilities of that sort, like pension fund, defined benefit pension funds and plans and stuff like that. So, a Bitcoin white paper.
Yeah,
it's surprising.
The numbers that are released too are on the bright side. So actually, is that real? You know what I mean? If once this crashes, what will the reality be?
Well, that's another problem, is like, how do we establish what is real in terms of information theory? Like, Bitcoin creates an anchor for truth because we have proof of work behind it. In this day and age where we can just have CGI computer effects and rewriting history, and edits on Wikipedia, and like removing like the changes that happened, and whitewashing and all of this stuff. Like, all of a sudden, there's this gigantic memory hole that exists, and then there's Bitcoin. So you can cryptographically prove that something existed. I've used it. I've taken PDFs, run it through the SHA-256 algorithm, gotten a hash, put that hash into an op return in a Bitcoin transaction. So now I have proof that PDF existed at a certain point in time. Bitcoin's going to totally redefine how we establish trust. and what we actually believe is true. Like somebody says XYZ in 5 years ago. Well, now you can cryptographically prove that they said it 5 years ago. So in terms of the historical facts, we're going to have a whole new way of determining verifiability. You know, when you want to make edits to Wikipedia, it needs to be credible and verifiable. Well, instead of using things like books or whatever that could just be rewritten, now we can actually take the book, hash it, put it into the Bitcoin transaction. We know that that book existed 100 years ago, right? I mean, Bitcoin is going to really change a lot of stuff when it comes to history, audits on companies, auditability, just the way we establish trust in general. I mean, because people are like, oh, Bitcoin's in search of a problem. It's like, no, this planet's got a big problem. This planet does not have accurate history. It does not have accurate way of keeping records. It doesn't have accurate monetary system. I mean, we got all types of problems down here.
We sure do. And the difference definitely is the verification. I think that's the word, that's the basis for what's been missing all along, is how do you verify that it's the truth? What you're being told is the truth. And that's where all of our problems lie, because many times that's not the case. So
yeah, well, what was the first thing that the people at Enron did? They went and started shredding the past,
yep.
Right? And then, like, I mean, anytime somebody wants to perpetuate a giant fraud, the first thing they want to do is attack the past. Well, guess what? Bitcoin's going to stand there as a sentinel with proof of work behind it, protecting the past. I mean, it's not just Bitcoin transactions that it can protect. You could take millions of documents, hash them all through a Merkle tree, get a Merkle root, put that hash into the Bitcoin transaction. Now you can cryptographically prove that entire Merkle tree existed at that point in time. I mean, this is going to be it's going to be great for humanity, but not great for control freak, power hungry, fraud conmen. You know, they're gonna it's bad news for those guys.
Yeah.
Very bad news.
Trace, it is always amazing to have you on the show. Thank you so much for coming on today. Please tell everybody how to follow your work.
Oh yeah, so at Trace Mayer on Twitter, where I have some fun, like our president.
Yeah.
and then also the Bitcoin Knowledge Podcast, so www.bitcoin.kn, and I interview top people in the Bitcoin space and have a lot of fun there. And there's hundreds of interviews in the archives, and I try to do them in a way that, you know, people go listen to the archives, they'll still learn a lot, and it'll be helpful for them. So, you know, hey, you can always do that.
Trace, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thanks for being with you.
Mr. Trace Mayer, he is a pioneer Bitcoin investor and the host of the very popular Bitcoin Knowledge Podcast. For Cryptocurrencies, the Future of Digital Money show, I'm Michelle Holliday at PortfolioWealthGlobal.com.
Check out trending interviews right now. Harry Dent, the famous deflationist who predicts single-digit silver and has now changed his tune. Greg Mannarino with a no-holds-barred interview where he lays out his top ideas. Jim Rogers outlines exactly how the crash will happen. And Charles Nenner on major stock market crashes and gold crashes. Portfolio Wealth Global has written and published the only report online showcasing how the internal division within the U.S. between federal and state, Democrats and Republicans could be exploited by China and Russia. You must go to PortfolioWealthGlobal.com/attack and PortfolioWealthGlobal.com/drama. The mainstream media keeps it hidden from you.
First of all, this is my first experience with the Brazilian Bitcoin community. So let me ask, how many of you in this room have Bitcoin? Okay. How many of you do not have Bitcoin yet? All right. If you're sitting next to one of the people who do have Bitcoin, make sure that before you leave here today, you make them give you some Bitcoin. Not a lot, just a bit. Bitcoin is best experienced as a technology rather than explained. Learning about Bitcoin and experiencing how it can be used is the best way to understand what is the future of money. And you probably won't be in a room with this many people who have Bitcoin again anytime soon. So this is your opportunity. And those of you who have Bitcoin, please help people set up a wallet. Give them a small amount. And if you want, I will be happy to do that as well later on today. I've written a book called Mastering Bitcoin. And this book is for a technical audience. It is not about the economics of Bitcoin. It is not about the politics of Bitcoin. It is about the technology, how Bitcoin works, and how you build applications with Bitcoin. It was very important to me when I wrote this book to ensure that this knowledge could be shared with as many people as possible. And we started about 10 months ago a volunteer translation project. And more than 250 volunteers have been translating Mastering Bitcoin into 36 different languages, and 12 of those are complete. About 4 months ago, we completed the translation into Brazilian Portuguese. That book is available for free online as a PDF. You can download it from the website bitcoinbook.info. You can download the PDF. It's under a Creative Commons open license. That means that you can not only read it for free, you can share it, you can sell it, you can mash it up. You can turn it into a university course or a high school course. You can use materials, photographs, quotes, any part of the book in any way you want. You can turn it into a rap poetry slam if you want. Don't do that. And the whole point of this is to spread the knowledge as much as possible. So I invite all of you to go and check that out. What is Bitcoin? And why are we here today? Bitcoin is an innovation in the technology of money. How old is the technology of money? Who wants to hazard a guess? Who wants to guess? How old is money? Anyone?
Since the Romans.
Since the Romans? You need to go a bit further behind than that. Okay, how old is money? Anybody else want to hazard a guess? That's a good start. Romans, let's go further back. How about Cro-Magnon? How about Neanderthalis? How about millions of years old, perhaps? And yet we don't even know how old it is. Because what we have observed is that money emerges as a cultural artifact even among primate societies. Monkeys can learn how to use money. And so we believe that money is the oldest technology humans have developed. It is older than fire, it is older than the wheel, and it is perhaps as old as language itself, because money is language. Money is a form of language. And in these million years of development, money has experienced maybe 4 major technological changes. Money as abstract token, shells, beads, feathers, bones, things that are scarce in an environment, easy to transport, have aesthetic or primary value, and are used as an abstraction to express value to each other. Nuts, seeds, colorful feathers, beads, seashells. We see that throughout human society hundreds of thousands of years ago. And then the first major revolution in money was the use of precious metals in pressed coins, which goes back to perhaps Babylonian times, certainly popularized by the Romans, as you mentioned. That's the first technological adaptation of money. And for thousands of years, that's what money was. Precious metals pressed with the faces of important people. And then the second great technological revolution of money was to change money from precious metals to pieces of paper that showed that you had a deposit of precious metals in banks. And the introduction of commercial banking, which in those days was a great liberalizing movement, because it meant that money could now be used by people who were not part of the aristocracy. Until then, kings used precious metals, merchant class used precious metal, but most of the rest of society didn't really have access to the basic banking capabilities. And with the introduction of commercial banking and paper money, money changed. And it changed and it became a great equalizer, and it gave opportunity to millions and then billions of people. So let me ask you, how do you think people reacted when paper money was introduced? Oh, that's a fantastic idea. Paper money, it makes perfect sense. It's light, I can carry it easily, I can give it to other people, they can exchange it for other paper money that has different numbers on it. This is much better. No, that was not the reaction. That was not the reaction. The reaction was, that's not money. That's not money. Give me real money. I don't believe in your fake money. I want the real money, the money you can bite to see if it's silver or gold, the money that has the face of the king on it. I want the real money. This paper money that's like a deposit slip for a bank account that maybe holds gold, who the hell knows? That's a scam. Now, the Italian master of scams, Mr. Ponzi, had not been born then, but if he had, they'd call it a Ponzi scheme. They didn't know what a pyramid scheme was, so they didn't call it a pyramid scheme. They just called it fraud. So the third revolution, or the second revolution in money, was greeted with universal disapproval. It took 400 years for people to get comfortable with the idea that paper money had value, because they had to understand that the value of money does not come from the precious metals. And it does not even come from the face of the king that's stamped on the money. It comes from the economic activity it creates through its exchange. It comes from the social bonds it creates. We make money valuable by using it. Money is a great societal illusion. If I believe that the piece of paper I have in my pocket will buy me 6 eggs tomorrow because somebody else will take that to buy something else, that has value. And that illusion is what creates value, and the exchange is what creates value. And it's amazing because once you start talking about Bitcoin and people start asking questions about why Bitcoin works and what Bitcoin is, you realize that in order to have a conversation about what Bitcoin is and why it works, you first have to have a conversation about what money is and why money works. Because, ironically, the most important technology we have in our society is never discussed in school, is never discussed in science, is almost never discussed between parents and their children. And yet children ask the most interesting questions about money. Mommy, why can't we have more? Why do other families have more than we do? Why can't everyone have more? Why can't we make our own? These simple questions that children ask, and most parents have no way to answer that. What do you say? Susie, go study inflation and come back only when you understand the balance between inflation, hyperinflation, and stagflation. We don't discuss money, and yet it's a very important technology. In the 1950s, we saw probably the last and fourth greatest revolution in money, the new technology of credit cards. A piece of plastic, which at first was a piece of paper, invented in 1950 by Diners Club, a piece of paper that represented a credit account that you could use instead of traveler's checks. And of course, everybody who saw this new form of money was like, oh, wow, this makes sense. I don't even need to carry all of those pieces of paper. This will be much more convenient. Let's all do this. No, that's not what they said. What they said was, this isn't money. We only take real money, Federal Reserve note, dollars here. Take your little Diners Club thing elsewhere. I don't understand it. And it took 30 years before people broadly understood that a piece of plastic is also money. Why? Because you can use it to buy eggs. And really, that's the only definition of money you need to have. And now, almost 1 million years into this technology, Bitcoin comes along in 2009. And everybody goes, oh, that's brilliant. We don't need banks, we don't need governments, it's completely decentralized, let's all use this. Not quite. What they say is, that's not money. It's a Ponzi scheme, it's a pyramid scheme, it's fraud, it's not money, it has no value, it has no face of a king or a queen on it, it doesn't have the official approval of a government, how could it possibly be worth anything? And yet I pay for my plane tickets with it. And somehow this not money allows me to get into a large steel tube and ascend to 37,000 feet and be transported across continents. That sounds like something that is money. I have been living on Bitcoin for more than 3 years. It is the vast majority of my income. That kind of sounds like money. I can use it to buy products and services. I earn it by selling my own services and products. That kind of sounds like money. But it's not money as we knew it. After a million years, we are now standing at the beginning of the fourth revolution of money. And we have money that is independent of governments and independent of banks. Money that allows every one of us not to have a bank account on our phone, but to have an entire bank on our phone. I have an application here that can generate 2 billion account numbers, that gives me access to international wire transfers, that allows me to do merchant processing, import-export commerce with any country in the world, and transmit and receive money at the speed of light anywhere for very little fees. I don't have a bank account in my pocket. I have a bank, because banking is now an app, and I am a banker. And you are a banker. And you are a banker. And we are all bankers, because none of us are bankers. And that fundamentally changes our relationship with money. And this money is not owned by any government. It's not controlled by any nation. I remember a time when the only airline I could take from my country had my country's flag on the tail of every airplane. And the only phone company that operated in my country was the national phone company that had its flag on the top of the building. And those were ridiculous ideas. The idea that you can only have an airline that belongs to a country and have exclusive monopoly over all airline operations is ridiculous. Why is it so ridiculous to think that the idea of a national currency with the flag of a nation on it that has complete monopoly within a country, why is that not ridiculous? It is. We just accept things because they've been that way for as long as we remember, not because they make any sense. And so now we have other options. Bitcoin allows us for the first time to have choices in the number of currencies we use. And it's important to understand that we have to look at Bitcoin from a different perspective. People ask me, which is the first country that is going to adopt Bitcoin as its national currency? That would be a disaster. That is a terrible idea. That's an idea as terrible as the euro. Creating a monopoly of money with a national flag on it is the exact opposite of what Bitcoin is about. The idea of currency being a zero-sum geopolitical game of competition between nation states is ridiculous, and Bitcoin is not going to play that game. That's not the point. Which country is going to adopt Bitcoin? The internet. The largest, most populous concentration of human beings collaborating in the world today is not a country. It is the internet. And the internet has its own currency. It has already adopted Bitcoin. Which banks will start using Bitcoin? None of them. Which countries will start using Bitcoin? None of them. Will Bitcoin replace national currencies? Of course not. Because money is a language. And if you think of money as a language, the idea of one universal money is as ridiculous as the idea of one universal language. You all speak English, right? Did that influence your decision to abandon Portuguese? Do you only learn one language because, after all, it is the universal language? There is no universal language. There is no universal money because there is no universal culture. There is no universal religion. There is no universal state. We are not a universal nation. We are a diverse species. So we have diverse language and diverse culture and diverse religion. And now we have diverse money. And if that's threatening to a government, the idea that individuals have a choice to use diverse money, then you have to ask yourself, why is my government threatened by financial freedom? And ironically, some of the governments that have currency crisis right now are not really threatened by Bitcoin. And neither should the banks be threatened by Bitcoin. What Bitcoin represents is opportunity. More than 4 billion people in the world have very, very limited or no access to banking whatsoever because of politics, because of geographic barriers, because of technological barriers, not because they have no value as productive human beings. And we have an opportunity with this technology and technologies like it to take 4 billion people and make them part of this new global economy, to give them access to the same financial power as a bank, without borders, without control, without censorship, and with full financial freedom, autonomy, and privacy. We live in a world where in the last 30 years, it has become the norm for individuals to have zero financial privacy, for every financial transaction you do to be surveilled, monitored, and controlled. And at the same time, governments have complete secrecy. And that world is upside down. Because the world I want to live in, individuals have privacy. And when you have not been convicted of a crime, you have freedom and privacy. And governments have no secrecy and full accountability and transparency because, after all, they're using our money. It's not theirs. And Bitcoin actually delivers that promise. It delivers privacy at an individual level that protects you against surveillance. And it creates a global public ledger that, when put in the hands of government, forces them to have transparency and accountability. Let every day be Panama Papers Day. So what Bitcoin brings, especially for a country like Brazil, is the opportunity to create diversity in finance, to give people choices to use multiple currencies, to unleash innovation and creativity, to help entrepreneurs build completely new businesses, new financial models, a new system of financial services to serve a completely different population that has never been served before. It brings the opportunity for young people to learn the future of money today, to see what money could be like in 10, 20, 30 years, to be part of a transformational force that is making money a borderless, open, decentralized system with no national flag, no government, no banking control, where power is shared among all of those who participate, just like the internet, making it much more resistant to corruption and serving the people who use it directly. And what do we need from governments and banks in order to do this? Nothing. Preferably nothing for the next 5 years. The best thing a government can do to help Bitcoin succeed is stay out of it for 5 years. At least. Because writing laws about a technology you don't understand is the worst thing you can do to that technology. Taking a system that can create opportunity for a country as diverse and enormous as Brazil is, where millions of people have no access to banking, and squashing that opportunity by creating laws for something you don't understand is a terrible idea. So if anybody who is in government is listening, don't do anything for 5 years. You know why? Because other governments are going to be stupid, and they're going to pass stupid laws about technology they don't understand, because they don't know where Bitcoin is going in 5 years. I don't know where Bitcoin is going in 5 years. We don't know. We're making history. This is the front seat of history in an innovation in money that none of us yet understand where it will go. Only the 4th time in 1,000,000 years on the most important technology we have in our society. Leave it alone because you do not understand it. We do not understand it. Let it breathe. There are plenty of people who will try and fail to build companies with Bitcoin. Most of them will fail, but some will succeed. And they will create completely new industries from nothing that never existed before. 20 years from now, the 10 largest financial institutions in the world will be technology companies. They will have no accounts, no customers, no assets, no liabilities, no balance sheets, no banking branches, no ATMs. How can I say that? The largest taxi company in the world has no taxis and no drivers. The largest hotel company in the world has no hotel rooms. The largest content company in the world makes no content. The largest phone company in the world has no phones. And so it is not strange to think that the largest financial institution in the world will not have any banking customers or any banking branches or any ATMs or any debit cards or any accounts or liabilities or assets. They will be a technology company. And it might be a technology company that used to be a bank. If the banks are smart and realize that their business changed fundamentally on January 3rd, 2009, and there is no going back, there is no negotiating, there is no bargaining, there is no watering down, there is no censorship or control, there is no power structure, there is no inflated profit margin. Those things, poof, disappeared in 2009. And some will not accept that, and they will disappear. 15 years ago, the top 5 camera companies in the world were Kodak, Polaroid, Fuji, Nikon. Kodak invented digital photography in 1976 and buried it because they were terrified of destroying their primary means of profit, which was selling the films and chemicals to process analog photography. And so they buried it, and they didn't take advantage of it. And they sat back and continued to milk their industry for 25 years, until one day, in the middle of the first decade of the millennium, a company that was not a camera company shipped 1 billion cameras. And that company was Nokia. And they had no way of anticipating that. And overnight, the camera business disappeared. And today, the top 5 camera companies in the world, Nokia, Samsung, Motorola, Apple, Google, none of them camera companies. And where is Kodak? Bankrupt. Polaroid, bankrupt. Fuji, almost bankrupt. Nikon, almost bankrupt. And they're all doing digital photography as fast as they can and failing. This can happen to banking, but it doesn't have to happen. Instead, in many countries where banking is an important service to deliver to real customers, where the importance of reaching banking out into rural populations and giving people control over their money and helping them achieve financial security is an important goal for banks. Bitcoin is not a threat. It's the greatest opportunity these banks have ever had. And those banks that achieve this opportunity will win. Brazil is going to be a hot spot for these financial technologies. It is a country with massive inequality, but massive opportunity, with a young and educated professional population that can achieve amazing things, with an enormous rural population that is cut off because of geography, that can be reconnected with the simplicity of a text messaging phone and Bitcoin, and have full financial control and freedom, again. And so I see great opportunity and promise in Brazil. And that's why I have been so excited to be here and to be part of this amazing Bitcoin community. Thank you. You want to do questions?
Well, what do you think about the Ethereum?
You know, I've never been asked that question in Brazil yet. It only comes up at every meeting. I'm really very interested in Ethereum. I've worked in Ethereum from the very beginning. I've watched closely the development. I've written smart contracts, and I continue to work in Ethereum. I think Ethereum is a fascinating technology. It shows how diverse the ecosystem of blockchains and cryptocurrencies can be. I think it's important to understand that it solves different problems from the problems that Bitcoin solves. And I think it coexists. In fact, it works best in coexistence with Bitcoin. Bitcoin provides robust security as a reserve currency and trusted ledger with very, very strong immutability and unforgeability. And part of the reason it achieves that is by being simple in its construction, which means it can't do smart contracts. Ethereum is more complex in its construction, which means it can do smart contracts, but as a result, it loses some of the robustness that Bitcoin has, which means they work very well together and can coexist very strongly together. I think we're going to see some very interesting things. Of course, you know, Bitcoin is still an experiment. It's 7 years old. Ethereum is even more of an experiment at 1 year old. And so we're going to see a lot of change over time as we try to learn what it means to build smart contracts on blockchains.
What do you foresee would be the most likely reactions of the greatest incumbents, banks, regulators, and so forth?
Well, I've done a talk about that. It's called the 5 stages of grief. It starts with denial. Denial is when clearly this is silly technology that cannot possibly work and Bitcoin will be dead soon. That lasted for the first 3 years of Bitcoin. Then it switches to anger. This is not correct. It must be stopped. Make it illegal. Ban it. Only criminals use it. It must be stopped. That lasted for about a year. That didn't work either. Then we went to the 3rd stage of grief, which is bargaining. Hey, yeah, Bitcoin's not that interesting. Blockchains are really interesting. How about we do blockchains without any of the things that Bitcoin does? Maybe we can keep all of the control, power, centralization, and do blockchains, and that way we won't be disrupted. That's been since the middle of 2014 until today. That's not going to work. The most interesting things that Bitcoin does is because it's open and decentralized, uncensorable, immutable, and unforgeable, you can get some advantages with blockchains, but you can't get all of those advantages. And then we're going to go to depression. Aww. But we had such a good run for 2 centuries. Why is everyone taking away our business now? Why do young people not want to bank Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, with high fees? Why do they want all of these cryptocurrencies instead that work 24 hours a day? It's unfair. And finally, acceptance. at which point I'm hoping that the banking industry will find that if you want to reach customers, if you want to make this an economy not of the 2 or 3 billion of the most privileged financial people, but you want to make it one global, 7.5 billion included human beings, Bitcoin is a solution, not a problem. It's a promise, not a threat. And then we all win. Hey, I'm glad to be here.
About the decentralization.
Uh-huh.
What do you think about the centralization of mining in China? Don't you see it's a problem because the China government suddenly closed some mining because the RMB, for example?
I am concerned about any form of centralization. And I would certainly like to see less centralization. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's a problem. The centralization in mining that we have today in China is the result of a very specific technology adoption curve that goes from CPU, GPU, FPGA, ASIC over a period of 4 years, with each change in architecture offering a 10,000 increase in performance, which means that all of the equipment is obsolete within 2 to 3 months, which requires massive capital, access to chip factories directly as possible. It means that selling chips to others doesn't make economic sense, because if you keep them and mine them for 2-3 months until they're obsolete, you win more than if you sell them. And it means that, of course, access to cheap electricity makes a huge advantage. All of these factors together have created an enormously fast curve, but also centralization, primarily in China. And yet, we reached 16 nanometer fabrication, which means that the days of 10,000 performance increases and 2 to 3 month obsolescence are over. Moore's law is the fastest technological law we've had, except that compared to Bitcoin CPU to ASICs, it's slow. It's 5,000 times too slow. And so over the next 2 years, we will not see a 10,000 time improvement. We will see a 2 times improvement, and that's really slow. And that means that instead of the equipment being obsolete in 3 months, it will now have a shelf life of 2 years. And that means that having chips and mining with them instead of selling them is no longer an advantage, because you have all of the risks of warehouses and operations and government interference on electricity prices, whereas if you sell the chips, you can make a lot less risky money. So what led to centralization of mining? All of those parameters no longer exist. Mining changed about 6 months ago when we reached 16 nanometer. The problem is we haven't seen that. It's going to take about 1.5 years before you see the ripple effect throughout that industry. And the halving is going to be very important. But I don't think the centralization is going to last. The centralization was an artifact of performance increases that no longer exist, of limited shelf life that no longer exists, of advantages of centralization that now become risks of centralizations. Because if you put 100,000 miners in a warehouse and you lose power for 2 days, your entire profitability is wiped out for the month. But if you put 100,000 miners in 100,000 kitchens and you use them to toast your bread or cook your sausage, as Sven showed me the photos today, he cooked hot dogs on an Ant S7 miner. That was kind of cool. Then you have the advantages of decentralization, because if power goes off in one kitchen, it doesn't affect anybody, and your profitability doesn't depend on anything. So all of the things that made Chinese centralization happen are now unmade. I also want to make another point. If mining centralization had happened in Sweden, a lot of people would be a lot less concerned. And that's not just because the Chinese government is a threat to Bitcoin. Because if you think about it, the people who are doing mining in China are directly opposing their governments by doing this. They're taking enormous risks. They are entrepreneurs of the finest capitalist attitudes who should be applauded, with incredible engineering and operational skills. They're not their government and will resist and fight hard to maintain independence. We should applaud that, not fear it. And somehow I think if they were Swedish, we'd be less concerned. So there is an element of racism in this. There is an element of xenophobia. There is an element of stereotyping an entire race. And I think that's wrong.
Hi, Andres. I would like to live in the same country as you said. Individual granted privacy 100%, and in states are obliged to spare. But as far as my knowledge goes, Bitcoin is 100% trackable.
Is 100%?
Trackable.
Trackable.
Track back to every wallet that passes through. So how can you ensure 100% privacy to individuals and to their own private transactions through Bitcoin or any other cryptocurrency in a world like this, especially with technologies like OneMain that somehow goes in a direction where individuals trading may be forced to somehow hide themselves? Thank you.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think you've got to understand that Bitcoin is not 100% trackable. Maybe it's 75% trackable right now. If you compare that to Visa, which is 100% trackable, every time you make a Visa transaction, it's not just the Brazilian government that's watching you. It's like 10 different intelligence agencies all watching you at the same time. In fact, it's probably illegal for the Brazilian government to watch you. So what they do is they probably outsource it to Argentina, and you watch the Argentinians. That's usually how it plays out. It's a nice way to get around democracy. Payment systems as we have them are 100% trackable. Bitcoin is 75% trackable now, but it's getting more private and will continue to get more private as time goes by. We have incredible innovations in the pipeline that take it from something that is partially trackable to something that is less and less trackable. And you've got to understand there's a difference between mass and individual, right? Bitcoin makes it possible if you have an individual who is suspected of a crime, and if there is proper judicial process to seize their computers and their wallets and see their addresses, to track everything they've done. And that perhaps is desirable in society. What it makes it difficult to do is do mass surveillance of the innocent. And again, that is desirable in society, that you can't do that, or certainly can't do it easily. But there's more inventions coming down the pipeline. Stealth addresses, confidential transactions, remixers. There's hundreds of other cryptocurrencies that you can convert your Bitcoin into and out of very easily. The entire system opens up a lot more freedom and privacy. And over time, it will get better. And we will have more and more privacy and anonymity in Bitcoin. So, and if you look more broadly than Bitcoin, there are certainly other cryptocurrencies that offer even more privacy and anonymity for individuals. So I'm quite optimistic that we are turning the tables and setting the world correctly, where we have privacy and governments don't have secrecy.
I want to know what's the main challenge that digital cryptocurrencies will have to meet in order to popularize, in order to spread it worldwide and everyone uses it.
So what are the prerequisites for broader adoption?
The challenges. What?
The challenges.
Yeah, what the digital cryptocurrencies will have to meet, will have to face to popularize.
Okay, fantastic. Let me do an audience question. How many of you find Bitcoin easy to understand? How many of you find Bitcoin easy to use? You're lying. How many of you find Bitcoin easy to secure your individual wallets, to back up, to make available to your families in the case of your death or incapacity? Until everyone in this audience can do it, more importantly, until my mom can do it, Bitcoin cannot be adopted broadly. We have a lot of work to do, and that means taking a technology that at the moment is difficult to explain, difficult to use, difficult to secure, on an individual basis, very secure on a global basis, but difficult to secure on an individual basis, difficult to plan for your retirement or to pass on to your family. All of these things need to be fixed. But you've got to look at it as an engineering problem, which is also an engineering opportunity. I sent my first email in 1989. In 1989, in order to send my first email, I had to download a mail client in source code, use a compiler to compile it into an executive application on a Unix system, on the command line, over a modem, on an account that I wasn't strictly speaking authorized to use, because I was 16 and I had access to the internet in 1989. You do the math. And after 2-3 hours of work with my Unix command line skills that I had just recently learned, I composed my first email. First, I had to find someone to send it to because there weren't that many people on the internet. And then I sent an email. And in the blink of an eye, just 36 hours later, it arrived at its destination. Now, if you asked me then, will you do your banking, your shopping? Will your mom use this? Can you do video calling with your mom on this? I would say yes, but it will take 20 years. Exactly 20 years later, my mom sent her first email. And she didn't have Unix command line skills. She went like this on her iPad. That's what we have to do. Now, you can look at that as a challenge. I think of that as an opportunity. That opportunity created a multi-billion-dollar industry for search, a multi-billion-dollar industry for email, a multi-billion-dollar industry for online services, a multi-billion-dollar industry for internet service providers, a multi-billion-dollar industry for tablets and mobile phones and personal computing devices, and all of the other things that we've seen. So the person who sees it as a challenge is the pessimist. The person who sees it as an opportunity to create a billion-dollar industry, I call that person an entrepreneur. And I see a lot of them in the audience today who are thinking, you know what? If I make Bitcoin easier, I build a very successful business. If I make Bitcoin easier to use, easier to secure, easier to understand, until you don't need to know how it works. So I'll turn around that question and say, you don't need to understand Bitcoin to use it. Because I guarantee you, there are not more than 2 or 3 people in this room who understand how TCP/IP windowing, Las Vegas,
and another bad hair day for me, but you know what? Wish you a happy Thursday. Holy fucking moly, this week has been flying
how
by.
an HTTP protocol message is formed.
Here, very cold, a very
anybody?
Whatever it is today.
1, 2, 3. Boom, bingo. And those are the developers in the room.
Right over here as,
and we all
Bitcoin
use the internet without needing to understand any of that.
At least for myself. Over here in the
Bitcoin is successful and will be adopted broadly
we did have that nice little
when you don't need to understand anything about how it works,
as well.
And yet you can use it. And then my mom
consider this a test of the red 10 symbol moving average right over here.
This
is the beauty of these moving averages. I want to see in relation to price action into these budgets to test just that. And so far we have found resistance right around that range that we spoke on yesterday.
You know,
I want to go here to my BitMexican chart.
When I started working in Bitcoin, I believed that we would see maybe
but,
1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different currencies that could succeed in different ways, and that they would have to fight each other for dominance. And I was wrong, because I was looking at Bitcoin from the perspective of experience with national currencies, and that's how national currencies behave. They're in a zero-sum game. Once I saw that more altcoins were being created and they acted as a laboratory, I realized the connections between money and language, and why, just like there are hundreds of thousands of human languages, there will be hundreds of thousands of alternative currencies and chains, and then perhaps millions. And they will continue to be created at a rate of thousands per year, and then tens of thousands per year.
Overall,
and maybe most of them will not have very significant economic value. Maybe some of them will only have the value of reputation or loyalty or popularity or historical significance, or they'll explore a single narrow feature or capability.
Pair that up with your exponentials.
There will be thousands. And they will all have value to someone.
From each other. They are essentially
because even 5-year-olds create currencies.
Now, this is
if you watch a kindergarten,
so we haven't seen a major
they create currencies out of rubber bands and colored blocks and crayons. They trade tokens of value with each other to express popularity and friendship.
So I want to present both.
Human beings create currencies. It's a natural process. It's an evolutionary imperative. So we will create thousands of them, and they may not have the same interest or value, but they will be powerful.
Pressure is down.
You know, I say sometimes people think it's funny, but imagine what happens when you have Justin Bieber coin. Now, for one thing, that's a horrifying idea.
It's found resistance again once
Justin Bieber coin. But at the same time, if that was created today, it would very quickly have more value than at least 15 national currencies.
ADX is actually still gaining
easily,
funnily enough.
Right?
We're seeing the DMI minus.
And so, is that money?
That, technically, that would be a short signal. I don't really.
It is to a Justin Bieber fan.
Yes, I am overall.
It's meaningful. It's valuable. It's exchangeable. It creates loyalty and social connection. We are redefining how we see money. From a field of narrow perspective and monopolies to an explosion of diversity that will flood our brains with thousands of currencies. And hopefully one day it will be so easy to use any of them that it will become irrelevant which currency you use, and currency will simply disappear into the background.
Suggesting that yes, Bitcoin does turn down here. Do I think that it actually flushes all the way down to new lows? I would say that this would suggest otherwise. Hey, who do we got in here? We'll just hit that off. Get this on over here. What's up? Welcome, Becca. Becca B. Good to meet you. Pleasure as always. And just going off the daily, everything just looking like a multi-fundamental situation. What about the 2-day right over here? We did just set in a new 2-day and a 3-day, so we actually do have some looking at. And same thing with the 2-day. The 2-day stones are actually certainly getting very, very tired. And here's that across upwards. Now, of course, this is a fresh one. So we'll get another 2-day. It's just until February 2nd. 4-day as well. But overall, that actually could be suggestive that we are
very good. Let me take the first one, and then I'll try and tackle the second one. We don't have enough time, perhaps, for a broad discussion about scaling Classic and Core. So to the first question, what happens when private companies make private ledgers and private blockchains and private coins? How many of you work at a company that has an intranet that uses an internal network with an internal wiki and an internal email system?
Between this point and this point right over here, bearish divergence on the R
How cool is that?
Section higher housing the oscillator and the overall conscious downtrend.
It's not cool.
Back down here, and again,
and yet, when the internet started, a lot of companies thought that that's great, but the internet is going to be full of perverts and criminals and fraudsters and weirdos, and anyone can publish, and that's a terrible idea because most of it will be crazy ideas. So how about we take that and we make a closed system where we control who publishes and who connects, and we make a nice system that is suitable for all ages, kind of a Disney version of the internet. CompuServe, AOL, Prodigy, all of these systems that companies built, they failed. And the reason they failed is because they misunderstood what was the value of the internet. It wasn't the ability to send and receive data. It was the equalization of everyone as both producer and consumer, and the opportunity to have an open environment where everyone has the freedom to speak and be heard by anyone, anywhere, without controls, without censorship. That was the real value of the internet. And the real value of Bitcoin is a borderless, global, uncensorable, open system that allows anyone to innovate and access without asking for anyone's permission. And if you take that and you turn it into a closed, borderful, censored, controlled system,
this
it
guy
is
right over here
boring.
was
It will
was
generate
it done from
profits for
8,000
some,
down to 6,000.
but it's not
over here.
interesting in the
This guy was done
broader
from
sense.
10,000
And once you
down
create
to
all
like
of these
7,000 or
little
6,000 down around
systems,
here. So
you will have to
historically
connect
speaking,
them
this has
together.
significant
Bitcoin
implications
is
with
the
price action.
internet
That
of
would be
money.
on the other side
If
saying,
you
hey,
build an
Bitcoin is likely to
intranet
flush
of money,
onto new lows
eventually
from
you'll
here,
want to connect it to
which,
the
again, I
internet
will
of
actually
money.
flesh out this idea a
And
little
you'll
bit more,
connect
but I
it
do wanna
via
get these
Bitcoin.
timeframes, first and
So
foremost.
Bitcoin is
Now,
the interesting
let's go over
blockchain.
to the 4-day. I know
The
I
others
just
may
keep on
be
going on,
interesting
but
for
the
narrow
reason why the 4-day
purposes,
is
just
important
like
is
the
we're about to
Justin
get a death
Bieber
cross on
coin
this
is
guy,
interesting to
and
Justin
just kinda
Bieber
show
fans.
you know, what happens when you get a death
You know,
cross.
the JP Morgan Chase
And
coin
this is
will
not
be
a
interesting to
picture-perfect
JP
coin,
Morgan
but
Chase
traditionally speaking,
executives.
you know, when you get a death cross right
And
over here
very
on the
few other
daily,
people.
well, nice, big,
Certainly won't be as
massive move
successful
down
as
right over
Justin
here.
Bieber coin.
It gets below all major moving averages and then spread them out. What about
When
the
it comes to
2-day? Well, we
classic
have the
and
2-day
core, I
death-
think it's
dildo
important to
death cross
understand
happening
that
right
Bitcoin
over
is
here.
undergoing
It
a
gets below all
debate.
major moving averages right over here.
And in
then,
the traditional
you know,
systems
boom,
of money
down.
that we know, when a
51% drop,
debate
a little bit stronger
lasts
than
too
the last
long,
one. Then we had
the
the 3-day one,
boss
which
stands
actually
up and
didn't have
says,
too much of
that's
a-
enough
too much
debate,
implications
here's
right
what
over
we're going
here.
to do.
And sending this one
Well,
down
there's no
to
boss
the
in
prior lows,
Bitcoin.
actually about 25%
So no one
drop.
can
It's
say,
not low.
that's enough
And with
debate,
the
here's
4-day,
what we're going to do.
essentially
We
coming
have
out
to
next,
all agree.
on
And
February
Bitcoin
2nd,
is
will be
difficult to
confirmed,
change.
barring any sort of major
And the
run back
process
up
of
to like
changing
5,000,
the
low
difficult to change
5,000s, we'll
Bitcoin
get that death
is
cross
loud
to be a little
and
bit
it's
more-
noisy
to be a little bit more
and it's full of
intense with my speech.
debate and argument and
I don't wanna
accusations
sugarcoat it.
and
Could that
drama.
be the impetus for this actually
Where I
coming
come
out
from, we
and-
call that
and dropping onto
democracy.
new lows?
Now, you may
Well,
not have seen
again,
democracy in
in
financial
that-
systems
in that
before.
case,
It may be a
and
new
there are some,
phenomenon.
you know, we're gonna go
But
over
that's not
more,
a
in that
problem
realm.
for Bitcoin.
Yes, this
That
will be
is its
confirmed. We get
greatest
below
strength.
all major
The
moving
fact
averages.
that
We
no
also
one
do
can
have 4-hour
impose
Stokes,
a decision
you know,
on everybody
confirmed fresh
else.
cross down as well. In
Core
this
can't,
also beautiful.
even if it might look like they
You
can.
basically
Classic
have a nice
can't.
resistance level
They
right
each
here,
hold
getting trying to
veto
get out of
over
the
each
bearish
other.
control zone ever
Consensus
since
is much more
essentially
broad and
consolidated.
nuanced than we
And,
understand.
broke 6,000
And
right here.
democracy
So this
looks
likely
messy.
does have implications with price action.
If you
So
want
I think on higher
efficiency,
time frames suggesting that, also
then
DMA,
just
yes,
put one
again,
company
giving you
or
a short
person in
signal on
charge,
this. I don't
and you will
see
get
that as a
efficiency.
short
The
signal.
price is freedom.
And the RSI is
We
yeah,
buy
below
freedom
the exponential right over here.
by paying the price of
And,
inefficiency.
really significant.
And I will make
again,
that
bearish
choice
divergence,
every
you know, in
single
comparison
time.
to the 2 days, so
Thanks.
that still has some room to play out. Anyways, it is the last day of the month, so hey, happy end of January.
Hey,
Let's
what's up?
look at
Welcome to
the
today's
monthly,
video. Today we got a
while we're over
big
here.
pump in the
And
market.
let's get
Ripple
all of
is
that.
pumping
And
based
again,
on
so now I'm
news
gonna
that
start
they
to
got a
flesh
new
out the
partnership
scenario.
that SWIFT, the
Essentially, on the side
banking
of this thing
technology
is
that
likely
uses to
headed
send
down
international wires, is
Okay,
going to
so-
integrate with R3 technology,
first, before we go
which
through
is
this, let's actually go
related
back to
to
the lower time
Ripple,
frames
and
because
it's
it's
indirectly
important to
related
discuss
to
this
XRP.
first.
So basically, the entire
Um,
market pumped, which is
okay.
pretty funny. And we got Murad here sharing
So when we
his
spoke
opinion that
last
the
yesterday and the day
infamous
before, basically,
200-day
this was the
week
area to
moving
watch,
average for
3480.
Bitcoin is going
As
to
long as
break.
Bitcoin's below that
And we're
area,
actually going
I
to
am
find the
more
final
immediately
bottom and
bearish,
support around the
meaning I am looking for
300-week
shorts. Doesn't mean
moving
that it's
average,
always
which
gonna
is
play
even
out
lower.
and be
So he
to the
shares
short
here a
side, but
really
as long as you're
detailed
below that area,
analysis about
it's pretty
that.
fucking, you know, it's
Very well put
it's
together.
hard to
Now,
make a more
also
immediate bullish
Positive
case.
Crypto here
Looking at all
shares the
time frames
Bitcoin
now. If
NVT
Bitcoin could get
signal
back above 35,
and why
30-ish area
he
right over
agrees
here,
with this
is gonna look a
analysis.
lot
Shares
more
here a
like
pretty
a
interesting
bulltrap,
insight
and it's gonna
actually.
look a lot
And
some people,
also
a lot
Binance
like
is listing the
this, and
BitTorrent
and
token,
essentially
and
what
they
we saw,
completed the distribution.
over a
So now
bounce
it's
off the
listed on
200
Binance,
symbol
and the question
right over
remains
here,
is
which
it
I
going
never
to
like to
pump
be
like
short coming
other
into, which
tokens that were
you can
listed
definitely say
before
that we have already
via
tested it on this
Binance
deal over here.
Launchpad, you know,
Now,
ICO tokens like Bread
I
and
think a lot of people are
Gifto.
looking at
So we
this
got
area
a
right over
pattern
here
here
in
that we're going to cover, and yeah, just so many things happening. We got here a list of all the Bitcoin forks over the last few years. We got Facebook and Apple relationships worsening and even becoming worse, and also Google starting to face similar issues to Facebook here. So we got a little battle of giants here of platforms versus networks. So yeah, very interesting. Let's dive right in.
What's up? My name is Veron Cryptosphere. We make news videos on this channel every single day. Today the market is slightly in green. You can see here Bitcoin around $3,510, something like that. Just a slow, quiet period here that we're going sideways, right? But you can see here Ripple is up almost 10%. Just past Ethereum and by a large amount too. I mean, Ethereum 11.4 billion, Ripple 13.1 billion. Biggest gainers of the day, Ripple and Aurora, and Bitcoin Cash up 5%. biggest losers, Twindex and Holochain. All right, let's dive right in. So the analysis with Muad is pretty technical here, but I'll give you the summary here. Basically, he shares here that in 2015, the final bottom was the 200-week moving average, but now he thinks that it's going to be different. It's going to be the 300-week moving average. You can see here in the first bear market here in 2011, the bottom was around the 100-week moving average, and now it's 200. Then he thinks that the support here, the final bottom, will be the 300-week moving average. So it kind of aligned with his previous prediction of Bitcoin going to go up and then it's going to go down to final capitulation in the next 3 months. Let me show you. So he talks here very in depth. We're not going to cover all of that. He goes like really in depth. It was pretty overwhelming to look at the chart, to be honest.
Putting in a massive red dildo party all the way down to 52.5%.
If there's anything else I'd like to mention. I mean, yeah, you could pause the video and read what he says. You can check the description. You can check him on Twitter. But honestly, that's pretty much the summary of it. So he thinks that we are going to go even deeper, and then he shows even more things to explain his opinion. But it's just too much. I mean, it's nice colors. I like the colors. More than that, it's just a bit overwhelming. And yeah, it's kind of not surprising. All the technical indicators, almost all of them, are pretty bearish still, even though we corrected quite a lot. Now, Positive Crypto agrees with Muad here. He says here that he'd like to add some additional TA and FA thoughts, technical analysis, fundamental analysis, why he thinks this is likely to happen. So first of all, he says that the moving average of, what is that, 100-day and 128-day has been acting as pretty much resistance. I don't think we'll be able to break it. It's stuck around $4,300 area. A great shorting opportunity if we get to them. So you can see here over this bear market, those moving averages we're holding. Is that the weekly or is that the daily? I'm sorry, I think it's the weekly. My bad. So because of we are due to a drop fairly soon. Now, what was most interesting to me here was also him looking at the NVT signal, which we covered on this channel a lot. And he shows here we're going through a similar period as the previous bear market. It's actually very similar. So you see here we had a peak in the NVT ratio in 2014. This was around the top. Then we had a drop. Then we had oversold area. Again, it became overvalued, right? And then we had consolidation. Then we had the final capitulation. Fast forward to this market cycle, the next one. We had the same thing. Peak, drop, you see peak, drop, oversold, consolidate, and then here comes the scary part, the capitulation part, right over here. So he reaches a similar conclusion. And yeah, history looks like it does repeat itself. And you have to keep in mind that Bitcoin is mostly speculative right now. Yes, I'm very bullish on it in the long term, but you have to understand that the market is mostly psychological. There's no real revenue, profits, earnings, expenses like a traditional company. So the market is the psychology. I think it's even magnified here compared to other markets. So yeah, really like this analysis. Would not surprise if it would happen. And
basically going back to 2014.
Yeah, so now we are in this cycle right here. He says the BNM, the network momentum, shows that we are in the late bear market phase. Rising on-chain volume as price grinds sideways. Likely we are now in the green area with price capitulating in 2 to 3 months time. About a quarter of way up momentum cycle before bull market starts. Hang in there, everyone. So basically a few more months to go. And by the way, check the first link in the description for a webinar if you would like to learn more about those technical price indicators for Bitcoin. We'll cover that over there. Now Binance listed the BitTorrent token, and the question is it going to pump or is it not going to pump? And a mirror here shows what happened previously with Bread token and Gifta token, which went through the same process. You can see here we had a pump and then we had a dump, just your average altcoin listing, right?
Really does help pull it in. And
so yeah, he says keep in mind though, both these launches were in the bull market. Extreme care should be taken as it will be extremely volatile price action. Yeah, don't lose your pants. Be really careful. Now Swift, which is huge, right? A messaging network for sending bank transfers. I mean, it is Swift. It needs no introduction, right? It's going to integrate R3 technology, so that is great to see that they're even working with blockchain company to that regard. And yeah, this is big. I mean, it is definitely big.
Pores over here. There we
now,
go.
The thing is, this was somehow related to Ripple, to XRP token. So people kind of jumped the gun and they got really excited about it.
Volatility indicators also between 0 and 1, a high and extremely high.
Okay, I cannot find it right now. I probably closed it by mistake. But basically, people got really excited, and the entire thing just pumped really high. Like the entire XRP market cap pumped really high. Even though it's not related to XRP directly, they're just using the technology. Also, it's just a proof of concept. It's just very early stages. So the market, it's pretty hilarious. I mean, Red Yive here made a great tweet summarizing it. So Swift made like $300 million in revenue last year. And then Ripple just added $2 billion market cap, like almost 7 times as much to its market cap, just because an unrelated project is being used by Swift. Yeah, pretty crazy, right? Now, I didn't verify those numbers, like the 300 million, but it looks legit. So yeah, just this is basically a lot of speculation happening in the market, and hey, it's exciting, can't really complain. Now, Bitcoin, I saw this on Twitter. We got here this research by Datalight showing the Bitcoin forks over the last 4 years. We have, I think, 40 plus forks or something like that. So in December 2017, the top of the Bitcoin bubble, there were 19 forks alone in that month. So that's like one fork every like 40 hours created, or every time that you flash crazy like that. And so far, I think all of them were failed or didn't really work out. So just be really careful. If an altcoin puts the name Bitcoin in its name, historically that was a really, not a good company. Just something to be aware of. At the end of the day, so far there's only one Bitcoin. Now Facebook is being so Apple. Let me show you exactly. So Apple just revoked their iOS developer certificate. So yesterday we covered on this channel that Facebook was doing shady things. They're going around Apple's app.
Bringing it full circle. Started off here and completely went the other way. Sorry. Very distracted today. But right over here, 255 Exponential is in grave danger. Oh, I just got filled with as soon as we lose this current area, there is no business being done all the way down to, you know, basically mid 2000 right over here. It's very similar to what we had at the 6,000 level right over here, where once you lost 6,000, there ain't nothing doing all the way till this area right over here. And remember how fast that went? It's like a nice hot butter, right? And overall, you have to be, cognizant of what this implies. Bitcoin absolutely just shot.
Our future economy will be much more decentralized.
This 3250-ish area down around here.
We've all heard stories of robots that have wallets or of drones that are going to be making last-mile deliveries.
I want to be coming from this
but
unbiased.
These future stories, they sound a little random, right? They don't ground us in an understanding about where we're headed and where our economy is headed.
This is for you to
and there's sort of a
yourself.
reason for that. Mostly it's because we actually use the same part of our brain to imagine the future as we do to remember the past. So we're sort of stuck with old paradigms, things that don't necessarily help us explain some of our innovations forward.
That's essentially what I do.
So today I actually want to use some of those old paradigms, the stories of how we've done economics and trade for a long time to help imagine where we're headed and why we're headed into a decentralized economy.
A weekly doodle closing below that.
So if you think back to our early agrarian days, we used to trade much more one-to-one. We had a lot of direct control over our trade because we lived in these smaller societies.
But right around here.
But as the distance in our trade grew and the complexity grew, we ended up with a lot more uncertainty over how our trades were going to go. To cope with that uncertainty, we basically built up institutions. Institutions like banks,
that's a big support to hold. As long as Bitcoin's holding this area right over here, I don't
different rules that help codify
from a price action perspective, which I put the most weight on. I don't want to be thinking, oh shit, we're about to have a massive flush down once again. And as you can see, Bitcoin
now
has
eventually
some nice
we put these same institutions
as long
online.
As Bitcoin's below this 35-30 area right over here, I am leaning towards that happening.
Like Amazon,
to be very clear,
eBay,
so,
Alibaba,
again, trading
and
is
these
all
really
about
are
risk,
just
reward, and
a continuation of this story. Another institution
I did take a trade on my main account.
that helps us lower our uncertainty about one another at greater and greater distances, so that we can do business together.
I'm happy to have
that. That's kind of a fast history of economics, but we're actually changing yet again. And now, instead of relying on these traditional institutions, even the digital ones, we've actually created a technology that does the exact same thing. It lowers our uncertainty about one another, but instead of using an institution or a middleman to do this, we're actually using blockchain technology. So I want to tell you a little more about blockchain and why it's at the core of what we talk about as this decentralized
there's something very
economy.
apparent to be aware of over here. Now you'll notice
that
blockchain
is kind of a buzzword.
Around the
You've probably heard it in different innovation forums and talked about in different ways.
Basically,
but I actually like to use a rather familiar analogy to help bring that sort of more to life. What does blockchain really do? And the analogy is that of a checkbook.
What's our target going to be? 382
so when you
right over here.
Go to write a check, which maybe you do today or you don't anymore, you are basically writing down the terms of a transaction, right? I'm going to pay you
once we break the 618, we pop back down to the 786 right over here, which is going to be the next target.
Authenticate it.
If Bitcoin gets back above the 618,
your bank and my
then yes, I am thinking bear trap. But as long as we are nowhere near the 618 over here and using this guy as resistance,
now, over time, as you fill out all the checks in a checkbook, you end up with a bunch of different carbon copies left over.
We do have a very
and
obvious
this is essentially what we can call a block of data in a blockchain.
But
a block really just represents a lump of different transactions that have happened over a period of time that are cryptographically linked to a set of previous transactions. And so they form a chain. Now, the main difference here, though, is that instead of using your bank and my bank to transact and execute our transactions, we're actually using a whole network of computers that are running the same software and coming to agreement around the transactions that happen.
Doesn't mean that
so
at all, but
we've created a system to eliminate a middleman of sorts because there's no central administrator
I always want to repeat this, where I know that I'm wrong.
Run by all of the participating nodes.
Warning sign. If Bitcoin gets above here,
So this gives us like a global decentralized database
but again,
of all of these transactions, kind of like a global version of everybody's checkbook.
Within the overall spectrum of this. And
now, if we think about the story of the internet, we have a similar evolution with blockchain. We have public blockchains, similar to sort of our public internet. They're free, they're free as in open to everyone. Anyone can read or write to it.
Oh my God,
the same way you can with our current internet. We also have private blockchains. And private blockchains look more like an intranet. They're scoped to a set of known participants.
But wait, there's more. Let's go to the
same way you could scope an intranet to a company, and they can have slightly different governance structures. So we have sort of both of these architectures, public blockchains that anyone can read or write to, and then
the quick flush was down into the mid-2000s. Well, that also is
now this all started in 2008 with the publication of a white paper that described Bitcoin as a peer-to-peer electronic cash system.
It is interesting to look at.
Today, I think
and
Bitcoin's
also
at around
we do have some nice
$94 billion market cap
as well. So
in
a
a rather short amount of time.
And
but we've actually already evolved past this original architecture,
so to speak.
Bitcoin
but again, a long day ahead. A lot can happen in the span of, what is it, like 15 or 16 hours now?
In
Bitcoin land, we've seen Bitcoin do much crazier things just in the span of 1 minute, on FinEx and fun times.
But today, we've actually gone past that. We've created newer blockchains like the Ethereum network and others that actually generalize this infrastructure and allow us to do many kinds of transactions across this peer-to-peer set of intertwined computers. So today, we can actually think of modern-day blockchains as global, decentralized virtual computers. So thinking of this architecture as one large computer that you can actually write applications to and have executed in this decentralized way without middlemen.
And let's go over here. 4-hour Stokes are getting a little bit tired. Not crossed down at all yet. What about the 3 hours? Have they crossed down? Yes, they have. What about the 2 hours? Have they crossed down? Yes, they have.
Today.
What about the hourly? They've been down for a while. So yeah, everything up to a 3 hour is crossed down, and wanting to go more down, in my opinion, I would probably add a little bit somewhere right around here just to put on a trade and again be managing somewhere right around here.
Core protocols as well, those that define the Bitcoin network or the Ethereum network or others.
34.75-ish area.
We also have
below there, I do want to
middleware.
have that position on
In our modern digital lives, that's things like APIs
you could even put in a rising channel right over here. Is it
and then in blockchain, that's more like a client.
I want to remain more agnostic than anything when talking about price action here, but could we?
And then at the top we have applications.
Yeah, we could.
If we think about our digital era, we use many kinds of applications. Everything from email
I don't even have
to things like
super
Uber.
Right, but let's see
now
where that
today,
lines up. It doesn't
in
line up with anything else that we've been looking at.
Perhaps,
oh my God, is that a measure move down to 3250, which is also the measure move of this metric triangle right over here, which is also the 886 Fibonacci retracement on our fibs over here.
A decentralized infrastructure to run
again,
software.
Remember, Bitcoin has to close a daily below that area for me to get super
this
bearish.
application space
looking
is
for the new lows.
Quite
Until that
different.
happens, we can still
and the main
do
difference
similar to what happened in 20. What was it?
Is that they actually run on something called
got
smart
picked up
contracts.
off the lows once again, and then actually ran
so
up
think
to
back
a
to
new
that
high.
checkbook
Remember, going off the NVT signal,
checks
going
are
off the indicators,
actually
I think that's unlikely.
Right?
If I'm giving my opinion, I believe that's unlikely.
They're the terms
but,
of
hey,
the
it's
deal,
cards,
and they're
so
signed.
How to protect against that? Again,
we can actually
I keep on repeating
use
this, but
that
it's very
same
important. 35,
thinking
35,
and apply
30,
it to
you got above
anything
there.
that you can write.
Don't want to be short
as
if that happens.
readable.
Really don't want to be short. Let's go check out
So
CMEs.
any kind
CMEs
of terms,
easier
if
to read,
this
in my
then
opinion.
that
And
you
same
can
sort of
write
thing
in
over here. In fact,
code
you got the same
can
sort of
get
symmetrical triangle,
executed
and then it actually
across
morphed into a descending triangle right over here, which we did not
computer.
see on we did not see on spot exchanges actually. So this is only on CMEs, and then
This
that
allows
mesh move was
us
hit
to
all the way down here to the
automate
786, which is where we
only business logic, so the terms of our deal, but actually also governance.
Once again. Do we have anything to be aware of on our
important step
oscillators over here?
towards
Are we getting any
a
sort of different read? No, we're not on the 4 hours. What about 3 hours? 3 hours cross down as well.
So this future might still sound rather abstract
and
strange or far off.
So yeah, not really telling us too much unique things about price action.
I wanted to actually take it a little bit further.
And
when we think about all of these times that we've innovated in history to allow us to lower our uncertainty about one another, but expand the scope and scale of our trade, we've done this in different iterations. But we're still talking about trade, right? We're talking about buyer and a seller Well, I want to
getting
take
rejected
it one
right
step
over
further
here, not able to get back above the critical 618. I would be bearish off that. That is inside on what the Boston Alps are likely doing. The volume characteristics of this still very corrected in nature, and I've not really gotten the full go-ahead on an actual big move to be played out, funnily enough. So
it comes from somewhere, from some raw material, and goes
today's
through
gonna be
many
fun
different
day.
kinds of
whichever way that it does
transactions
go, whether it takes out the 618 or it takes out the 786 first.
So when we talk about starting to decentralize the architecture
it should be a very
by
fun
which
day. Again, you know,
we
looking
trade
at the
and
volatility rank, looking at all these
transact,
things,
we can
we
start
have a lot to be aware
to
of.
imagine
GBDC over here,
more
GBDC, same
decentralized
sort of a thing.
supply
Broke
chains
the
as
bear
well,
flag to the
because
downside
those are
to begin
just
the
a
week.
set of
Come back up to try to retest it, reject,
and
yeah, as long as we're living below $4.13,
what this means
that is
is
a
we need to actually go beyond thinking about trade to thinking about how we design, make, deliver, and even coordinate all of these products as they flow in our global trade.
SPY's over here. SPY's pumping up pretty damn heftily to
now,
end the day.
don't get me wrong,
I think this is best
our
viewed
modern
on a daily,
supply
but
chains
basically
are
we spoke
innovating
about the
in lots of ways.
what's it called?
We have
ascending triangle
many
or bull
different
pennant right over
kinds
here,
of
and that did
sort
take
of
off.
AI
Daily
or
did take a stab at
intelligence
the
at the top
200
that are
exponential right
starting
over
to
here.
help us make better decisions about forecasting on demand or even on the supply
more or less
side.
expected. So a lot of the times
using a
these moves
lot
actually do get faded.
these algorithms to just
but
help
after
make
coming off of
better
it like this,
decisions based on the
would be
information
careful.
we have.
I'd be really fucking careful, man. If
we also have
I'd
this
be
sort
using
of
still
middle
269.
layer
So if I were trading
much
this,
more
if I were trading this, I actually would have taken a short right over here, and I would have been taking. I would have taken a loss on this.
That are getting
but
embedded
again, that's trading.
as sensors
nothing's guaranteed.
and
but I actually would take another
connected
position right
devices
here
or
at about
smart
269
machines across our
and try to
manufacturing,
trade there with
our
risk
production,
management right
our
above. Why do I like these
distribution and
trades? Because you don't have to risk too much to find out if you're going to be right or wrong.
Machinery
now if
and
SPYs do close the daily
give
above
us
269,
a lot more real-time
then
information.
I think
and
no longer
help
think
us
it's
sort
bear
of
market
understand
time.
what's happening with our products over time.
The biggest news for me on SPYs is where does this monthly close? Do we close above or below the 21 exponential, which is all the way at 262? I mean, it's significantly higher than that right now.
We've actually never
really
really had this.
So
and part of the reason is
this is why really,
these intelligence systems,
when I speak about SPYs, yes, we can look at the lower time frames, but the higher time frames matter most. And if I really want to put on a real trade, like a real positional directional trade, you have to wait for the monthly to actually set itself. And while it can have a lot of work around this area, right now it is it's likely to close above, I'd say.
Actually able to use blockchain to do
above
is
at all.
Unlock this bottom layer, this idea of a network state, which you can think of as shared reality.
People get over aggressive in
How
this
can we
area.
actually have a shared reality that we transact on?
Don't try to be the hero shorting every little every little bounce up. I mean, the weekly has continuation as well.
More informed choices.
Weekly and monthly want to. I mean,
so blockchain
if I look at this and I would say that daily trade I was just thinking about, fuck no.
The ability to manage all that information and make choices on it by transacting it without middlemen.
Well, it's actually not similar
what
to Bitcoin.
autonomous network state gives us is something we at Animal Ventures call machine trust.
Comparatively speaking.
So if you take this one step further, rather than just these innovations in the course of human history to improve how we trade at scale,
really no trade should have been
made
until waiting for the monthly, and the monthly is likely to close above
trade
now. So
at
really,
scale.
I mean, the only trade I'd be looking at is.
And that brings us back to this idea at the beginning of robots that have wallets.
But again, you still have to wait for that as well.
You should think of as the next consumer class.
Or sorry, for the next month.
And they actually need an infrastructure upon which to transact and trade.
So fucking
and
important,
use
man,
data
for not just Bitcoin,
and all
but
of these
also
things.
SPYs. Do we close above or below this
and
area
so
right
this
over
is
here?
the role
If we
of
close below,
network
then
state,
yeah, fuck yeah,
and it's part of what will take us forward to a decentralized economy.
Okay, cool. So we talked about that.
Now,
Mr. Ripple's having a phenomenal run yesterday, but
thrive in
again,
this new world?
this is
what's going to happen to humans in
Did we take out any of the major levels on yesterday's run?
And
no.
We're very fortunate at Animal Ventures to get to talk to a lot of different
excited
luminaries.
And when anything happens,
we've had conversations recently with people like Kevin Kelly.
It's fun, and I would never short Ripple.
I
have a strong religious belief to never short Ripple because you never know when Garlic House is going to flip that goddamn switch and this thing goes to the fucking moon. But in a more serious tone, no, I do not short Ripple because it is news and events driven, and I don't like playing that.
And again,
you just never know.
These different individuals
I saw so
have
many people
honed in on this idea that we actually need to learn how to learn.
I literally saw significant.
So we need to learn how to develop new paradigms.
A lot of people literally use their accounts trying to short this on the way.
Faster.
I don't short ripples.
And then we also need to learn how to unlearn.
As far as charts go, this is not good right over here. Again, as long as you're below 34.5 cents, there's nothing different happening.
Trade,
so understand. I mean, even as long as you're below the 10 symbol right over here, it's still quite weak.
So I always like to bring up Leonardo da Vinci, who I think actually really embodies this future.
Not quite yet. To me, this looks like
epitome
looks like another likely
of a combination
rejection,
of artist and scientist.
This
is an image of his imagination of a flying machine, of a future helicopter. And we're actually going to need to cultivate both of these skill sets.
I shouldn't even
because on the one hand, if
the gangs will come out. I don't really have any strong opinion on